Chapter 4286. From the Heartless Sect, Yu stared at the Valley of Storms. None of them could leave. Outside the Valley of Storms, Chu Songyun's attitude was firm. He did not want to stay here. The suppression here made it hard for him to breathe. All he saw was killing. Heartless dominated everything. Although he was heartless and had no love that was innate, he always felt that if one did not care about anything, what was the point of living? Once upon a time he told others about this idea and became a weirdo in their eyes. He was a madman. Now he wanted to find his weirdo and leave this civilization. I remember that Yu does not cultivate the heartless path. Why don't you look for her? Lu Yin's voice rang out. Chu Songyun said, she is not worthy. Lu Yin? So direct? Elder Chiu and the rest's expressions changed. They immediately ran away. This was too harsh. From the Heartless Sect, Yu's expression was ugly. She took a step forward. When she appeared again, she was already outside the Valley of Storms. She stared at Chu Songyun. Chu Songyun's expression was calm. He did not care. Yu wanted to say something, but looking at Chu Songyun's back, she could not say anything. This was one of the disadvantages of the Heartless Path. Many people did not think before speaking. This was related to everyone's Heartless Path. For example, Chu Songyun. For example, Elder Chiu. Xiaman and the rest were different. He did not fear anyone and did not care about what he said at all. Just like how he dared to say that he wanted to leave the red coats under the stars outside the Valley of Storms. If it were Xiaman and the rest, they would not dare to say such things. When facing such people, one could only ignore them. Otherwise, no one could do anything. Yu glared at the Valley of Storms and left. Lu Yin shook his head. This person from the Heartless Path was really harsh. Mr. Lu, please give me a chance to serve you, Chu Songyun shouted respectfully. At this moment, besides Chu Songyun, there was no one else outside the Valley of Storms. Lu Yin's head hurt. He did not know how to deal with this person. He did not expect such a freak to appear in the red coats under the Heartless Path. Beat him, it was useless. This guy was not afraid of beating. Kill, it was impossible. He could fight with his life. Throw him away? Where could he throw him? He couldn't possibly throw him into the square-inch distance, right? That would be no different from killing him. Right. Lu Yin's eyes suddenly lit up. He looked outside the Valley of Storms. Yu came by just now. You said that she is not worthy. Heartless Sect. Yu had just returned, and when she heard Lu Yin's words, she was not happy. Instead, she was furious. She knew that it was impossible to reason with someone like Chu Songyun. The more she tried to reason with him, the more troublesome it would be. Furthermore, Lu Yin did not look like someone who would speak up for her. Sure enough, Chu Songyun opened his mouth. She's indeed unworthy. Yu's expression was extremely ugly. Why not? Yu clenched her fists and stared at the Valley of Storms. What did this mean? You still want to discuss it? Chu Songyun was very serious. Although she did not cultivate the emotionless Tao to attain immortality, she did so with the help of Elder Jianghu's strength. Even the red robes beneath the stars know that after she was abandoned by that bastard He Shao, if not for Elder Jianghu, she would have died long ago. Lu Yin was curious. What? Yu was abandoned by He Shao? Shut up. Yu arrived at the Azure Billow Valley again. With a casual wave of her hand, she sent Chu Songyun flying. Chu Songyun was caught off guard and did not even have the chance to defend himself. His body crashed heavily into the distance. She stared at the Valley of Storms. I don't need you to discuss my matters. Lu Yin coughed. Sorry? Yu snorted. She turned and stared at Chu Songyun before leaving. Chu Songyun wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and silently walked back to his original position. Yes, she was abandoned by He Shao. Lu Yin was speechless. He had picked up the topic again. Was he really not afraid of death? In the Heartless Sect, Yu had just returned and heard this. She clenched her fists, and her eyes were filled with murderous intent. She really wanted to kill Chu Songyun. Her mental state once had a flaw. It was all due to luck that she was able to attain immortality. I can't figure out how such a person could attain immortality. I can only say that Elder Jianghu is too powerful. Chu Songyun was still talking. Lu Yin was afraid that Yu would come and kill him. To be honest, he suddenly admired Chu Songyun. It was not because of anything else but because this guy respected him. He even dared to say that Yu was unworthy and called He Shao a bastard. However, he respected Lu Yin so much. This was not an act. Such a person could not be faked. Chu Songyun gave Lu Yin the feeling that he was in a three-man universe. This was because they respected Lu Yin so much. Alright, I got it, Lu Yin interrupted and glanced at the Heartless Sect. If this continued, Bai would come again. There was also Xuanhuan. This old guy had also appeared. He was probably worried that Bai would not be able to resist killing Chu Songyun. To the redcoats under the stars, Chu Songyun was really important. Lu Yin muttered to himself for a moment. Do you really want to go with me? Yes, Chu Songyun replied firmly. Lu Yin said, in our civilization humans do not cultivate the heartless path. Everyone respects each other and is loyal. Do you want to go there? Chu Songyun's eyes were burning. I can't ask for more. Alright, then go and look for Bai. Chu Songyun? Bai? Lu Yin looked outside the Azure Wave Valley. What you just said was too insulting. If I bring you to our civilization, you will be a burden to many people. Hence, if you want me to bring you to our civilization, the prerequisite is that you have to learn how to get along with people. Bai does not cultivate the heartless path and you just happen to offend her. Go and find her and ask for her forgiveness. Then, go and find those ordinary people who do not cultivate. Do 10 good deeds every day for 5 years. After that, come and find me. Chu Songyun looked at the Azure Wave Valley expectantly. Is this a test for me? Yes. Understood. Rest assured, I will definitely ask for Bai's forgiveness. With that, he left and headed towards the Heartless sect. At the same time in the Heartless sect, Bai was stunned. There was such a thing? What forgiveness? Did the red coats under the stars have the word, forgiveness? Those who cultivated the Heartless path did not have any humanity. This word was too unfamiliar. The key was that she did not want to have any contact with Chu Songyun. Seeing Chu Songyun heading towards the Heartless sect, Bai thought about it and went into seclusion. Even further away, Xuanhuan laughed and took a sip of wine. People from other civilizations were indeed different. In the Azure Wave Valley, Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief. He had finally sent this guy away. He had even made him pester Bai so that she could not keep an eye on the Azure Wave Valley. If he was in the Azure Wave Valley, it would be fine even if Bai kept an eye on him. However, he was afraid that Bai would suddenly come after he left. That would be troublesome. For the time being, that should not be the case. When he thought about this, Lu Yin used his mirroring technique. It was time to leave. Not long after, Lu Yin teleported away and reappeared at the core space. When he looked back, he was already very far away from the red coats under the stars. He looked into the distance again and teleported several times before returning to the human civilization. He looked for Mr. Mu, Blood Tower's Xianghu, and the others for a discussion. Qinglian Xianghu was in seclusion and would not come out for the time being. Lu Yin told them about the situation of the red coats under the stars, and they all fell silent. The Heartless Path. If it was just cultivation that made one emotionless, it would not be a big deal. However, this was the cultivation path of a civilization. It made an entire civilization cold-blooded and murderous. This was completely different from what they knew about human civilization. In particular, He Zhao's actions and those eternal realm cultivators were unacceptable. Everyone said that cultivators were emotionless. This emotionlessness did not come from killing, but from indifference to emotions. Xuanhuan was right. There were right and wrong in being emotionless. They could not accept those eternal realm cultivators no matter what. How many people were like that in the entire red coats under the stars? Was the hero ancestor such a person? Everyone was silent for a moment, not knowing what to say. Lu Yin's expression was complicated. They had found the red coats under the stars, but it was better not to find them. Once the red coats under the stars came into contact with their human civilization, he was not confident that both sides could coexist. First of all, those eternal realm cultivators were troublesome. They were really evil. Since the Heartless Path is a cultivation technique, it's not impossible to break it, Blood Tower's Xianghu said. Jiang Feng said, why do we need to break it? It should not exist, but it does not mean it cannot exist. As someone who had killed his way out of the apocalypse, Jiang Feng's thoughts were sometimes crueler. Back then, it was he who had ordered people to bring the hive to the spiritualized universe and lead the hive civilization there. Otherwise, the first place the hive civilization attacked would have been the Tianyuan universe. Lu Yin would not have been able to make it in time, and the Tianyuan universe might have been destroyed long ago. Blood Tower's Xianghu did not refute. He had cultivated to the eternal realm and had seen everything. Mr. Mu said, we don't actually need to interact with the red coats under the stars. The distance is too far, unless one of the civilizations is facing a disaster. Lu Yin nodded. So I've thought about it. Let's do an experiment to see how big the impact of the Heartless Path on our civilization is. If it's too big to make up for, then we can't come into contact with the red coats under the stars and treat them as if they don't exist. If it's not too big or if the people of our civilization can stay true to themselves, then we can contact the redcoats under the stars and help each other. Startled Xianghu's voice was cold. Those Eternal Realm cultivators will help us? Luyin was confident. If they can't beat us, then they will help each other. Don't forget about Red Hero, Blood Towers, Xianghu reminded. Lu Yin's expression was serious. I will try my best to see through the redcoats under the stars. Compared to them, our biggest advantage is teleportation. No matter how powerful Red Hero is, he can't teleport. Don't expose teleportation. The redcoats under the stars might know, Jianghu reminded. Luyin thought about it. After all, the redcoats under the stars existed during Jiulei's time. If they knew about the celestial plume civilization, then Jiulei must know as well. Once the redcoats under the stars knew that he could teleport, no one could predict the outcome. Luyin sent Mr. Mu and Jianghu back to the Tianyuan universe. He went to Yihai and the mangrove forest to see Hong again. Have you heard of the Heartless Path? Luyin asked directly when he saw Hong. Hong was surprised. How do you know about the inheritance of the redcoats under the stars? Was it also an inheritance? Luyin used karma as the basis for his search. Previously, he used karma to check on Honger's past. However, he did not know about the Heartless Path at that time and could not find it accurately. A person had a lot of experience. It was impossible for him to see through all of Honger's experiences. Now it was different. He used the Heartless Path to search. This was the simplest and most realistic way. Chapter 4287. He had seen scenes of cultivation in Ruby's past, but the results disappointed him. Her cultivation of the Ruthless Path was extremely shallow. It could even be said that her cultivation was crude. You don't seem to know much about the Ruthless Path. Ruby knew that Luyin was looking at her karma, but she did not mind. More than half of the Ruthless Path has been lost. Our civilization only cultivates part of it. If not for that, we would not have needed Master to save us. A true red coat below the stars is very, very strong. How many points are there in the Ruthless Path? Luyin asked. Ruby was shocked. How many points? This was something that only those who cultivated the Ruthless Path would know. She was excited. Mr. Lu, do you know something? Did you find my civilization? Luyin asked. Answer me. How many points are there in the Ruthless Path? Ruby suppressed her excitement and answered, Legend has it that there are 9 points. Luyin's eyes flashed. 9 points? Where did this legend come from? Ruby shook her head. I don't know. It was just passed down. Perhaps it has something to do with the 9 bases. 9 points is the limit. You know about the 9 bases? Luyin was surprised. Ruby nodded. I know a little, but not much. Luyin was about to ask something else. Suddenly, a chill flashed through his mind as he stared at Honger. The words 9 bases. How did you know about the 9 bases? Ruby did not hide anything and answered everything he asked. It's a legend of our civilization. You didn't learn about it here? How can you know about it here? Ruby was puzzled. Luyin stared at Ruby. No, this was definitely not right. This civilization knew about the 9 bases. It had come from Ancestor Shan. Luyin had gone to the 7 Treasures Heavenly Toad and learned about the 9 bases through Ancestor Shan. He had learned about the peak of the human race, and soon after, Azure Lotus Protector and the others had learned about it as well. It should have gradually spread through this civilization, but not much. When Ruby mentioned the 9 bases, Luyin subconsciously thought that she had learned about it after him, but she had only said a few words from their civilization. This was not right. This proved that Ruby had known about the 9 bases before him. At that time, no one had known about it. Even the jade stone that Azure Lotus Protector had shown him had blurred out the number 9 and could not be seen clearly. There was only one base. This proved that no one before him had known about the 9 bases. But Hong-Er knew. Hong-Er had been brought here by Lord Blue Lotus. If she knew, how could Lord Blue Lotus not know? Did Lord Blue Lotus not know anything about Hong-Er's civilization? A person who cultivated karma, even if the direction of development was different from his. He focused on killing, but because he comprehended karma, he could more or less find out some things. Why hadn't he heard of 9th base? Had he really never heard of it, or had he heard of it and decided not to mention it? Luyin stared at Hong-Er. Does Azure Lotus know about the 9 bases? Have you ever mentioned the 9 bases to Minister Qinglian? Luyin heaved a sigh of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. If Lord Green Lotus knew about Jiulei but deliberately concealed it, then that was not right. Even though it was meaningless to hide the fact that he had once given up on the Red Coat civilization, just like how he had stopped Hong from talking to him. But there could be other reasons. Everyone had their secrets. Ruby. Not only did he want to find out Azure Lotus Protector's secret, but this secret involved the entire human civilization. He did not know what to think. His mind was in a mess. Recent events had challenged his understanding. Azure Lotus Protector had always protected human civilization, but he had given up the entire universe of the Red Coats, leaving the countless people in that universe to fend for themselves. To him, he did not care about right or wrong. His past grievances were beyond Ruby's knowledge. If he still hid the fact that he knew about the 9 bases civilization, then it was normal for a person to have secrets, but it would be abnormal if they had too many secrets. Did Azure Lotus Protector know about the 9 bases civilization before he went to the 7 treasures Heavenly Toad? Ruby. She had never mentioned the 9 bases civilization to Azure Lotus Protector, just like how she had completely concealed the fact that she came from the Red Coats. The other 7 fairies did not think that she was human. If this did not involve his state of mind, he would still hide it. Ruby did not understand why Ruby was so obsessed with the 9 bases civilization. It was just a legend, and even in legends it was very vague. Luin left the mangrove forest and arrived at the edge of the Sea of Yi. He gazed at the boundless Sea of Yi, unable to let go of his worries. Azure Lotus Protector had always protected humans and helped him. In his heart, Azure Lotus Protector was a kind elder. He hoped that this elder would always be the same and would never change. He hoped that Azure Lotus Protector did not know about the 9 bases civilization before him and did not deliberately hide it. Even if he did hide it, it would be to hide the fact that he had given up the Red Coats. Ruby. Hope. When there was too much hope, was it still hope? Instead of thinking about it, he might as well ask Azure Lotus Protector directly. However, Azure Lotus Protector was in seclusion. Luin thought about it and released his Karma Heavenly Tao, which gradually spread towards EC. What are you doing, Mr. Lu? Luin answered, I had an epiphany while observing the karmic sea. Ruby. You are indeed Mr. Lu. Please help yourself. Then he retreated far away. The karma celestial phenomenon covered the entire universe and the Ruby. It was not strange for Ruby to have an epiphany. Even though this was the Yi Sea and there was the power of the Azure Lotus, Mingzhuo believed that his master would not object to Luin cultivating here. He remembered that his master had said that Ruby was a variable in the current human civilization. He was also a leader. Every improvement he made meant the improvement of human civilization. Epiphany often meant a breakthrough. He also hoped that Ruby would break through. If Ruby was already so strong, how strong would he be if he could break through to the eternal realm with karma? Ruby could not imagine it. Ruby. Of course, Ruby was not having an epiphany. He wanted to use his karma to search the Ruby. He wanted to comfort himself and turn his hope into reality. Karma spiraled back and forth. It did not touch the sea of karma itself. It was the power of the Azure Lotus defense, but it touched everything above the sea of karma that was not karma. It even touched the lotus pond that he had fallen into. If someone who could see karma was here, they would be shocked. Karma spirals flew everywhere in the Ruby. The karma celestial Tao covered everything. For 3 days the karma spirals pierced through countless things. They did not even let go of stones. Some stones were touched more than once. Ruby gradually calmed down. He knew that his actions were meaningless. If the Ruby of Azure Lotus Protector was deliberately hiding something, there would not be any flaws. But he still did it. He turned his hope into reality and suppressed his doubts and uneasiness. This was his goal. Suddenly Ruby's gaze trembled. He stared blankly at a corner. It was the location of the Ruby. When he had comprehended the Ruby murals, he had comprehended the Karma City wall. He had even broken a piece of the murals. At this moment, Ruby stared at the murals. The murals were carved on a stone. There was a mark on the back of the stone. It was very faint and almost unnoticeable. Ruby. The shape was a gourd. A wine gourd. It was exactly the same as Jianghu's. This alone did not mean anything. The 9th spirit of the spiritualized universe and Qing Xing of the 9 heavens universe both used wine gourds to drink. Wine gourds were very common. However, what really caught Ruby's attention was the mark on the back of the stone. He had seen that mark before. It was the mark of the Heartless sect. Every sect, family, and power had its own unique symbol that represented that power. The Heartless sect was no exception. The mark on the stone was the mark of the Heartless sect. This wine gourd belonged to Xuanhuan and could not belong to anyone else. 3 days had passed and Ruby had not noticed it at first. However, the karma spiral had flown around randomly, and he had finally touched the back of the murals just as he was about to leave. He had touched the mark of the wine gourd. The heartless sex Xianhuan had been here before. Ruby retracted his gaze and did not alert the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector. He acted as if nothing had happened and left. He wanted to go to the Red Shirt Civilization and find out what was going on. Xianhuan had been to the Ruby of Azure Lotus Protector's conversation with the Red Shirt Civilization. Why had he not mentioned it? Why had he hidden the 9th base? What was the Red Shirt Civilization that the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector had given up on? It was definitely not the Red Shirt Civilization that Ruby had been to before. That civilization was not necessarily weaker than the current human civilization. Why had the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector given it up? Since the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector had hidden this matter, it was impossible for him to know about it here. Ruby believed that the Blood Tower Protector and the Startled Gate Protector did not know about it, so he could only search for answers in the Red Shirt Civilization. Based on the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector's actions, Ruby of Azure Lotus Protector should trust him unconditionally, just like how the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector sometimes trusted him unconditionally. However, when he thought about Heartless Valley and the red coats beneath the stars and the few Eternal Realm cultivators, Luyin felt disgusted. Then he thought about how Qinglian Xianghu had given up on Hong Er's universe and left the humans in that universe to fend for themselves. He felt that this was in line with the Heartless Path. Was this in line with the Heartless Path? So what should he do? He did not wish for the elders that he respected to become parallel. Based on his interactions with the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector, it was unlikely that someone like Xiao would be like that. Wait a minute. Ruby's expression changed. If the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector had communicated with the Red Shirt Civilization, then Xianhuan really did not know that he could teleport? Judging from Xianhuan's posture, it seemed that he really did not know. Ruby took a deep breath. No matter what, the fact that he had been able to escape from the Red Shirt Civilization meant that even if Xianhuan knew about it, he would not make things difficult for him. In that case he could investigate. Perhaps Xianhuan's arrival was just an accident. No matter what, the Red Shirt Civilization was still a human civilization, and they would not make an enemy out of them. Otherwise, the Red Shirt Civilization would have killed their way over after so many years. Even if the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector had hidden this matter, he had his own reasons. No one had said that he had to reveal his secrets. However, whether or not the Jade of Azure Lotus Protector revealed it would not affect Ruby's investigation. Ruby found the Blood Tower Protector and asked him to find a group of people who were good at swindling and had rich emotions. He wanted to bring them to the Red Shirt Civilization and see what the results would be. This experiment would directly affect how the 3 universes interacted with the Red Shirt Civilization in the future. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 4288. Of course, this was only on the surface. What Luyin really wanted to do now was to investigate the relationship between Xianhuan and the Azure Lotus Emperor. He wanted to do something under the premise that Xianhuan thought he was completely unaware. Next, he would head to the Red Coat Civilization. Before he left, he made a special trip to the Tianyuan cosmos. He found Mr. Mu and told him about his discovery. In the current human civilization, he trusted Mr. Mu the most. Mr. Mu was his master. Without Mr. Mu there would be no him. Mr. Mu did not expect such a thing to happen. He looked in the direction of the 9 Clouds universe and said, "Don't tell anyone about this, including Jiang Feng. It's not that I don't trust him. His experience has made him think differently from us. It's similar to you. Once I tell him, I'm afraid it will affect his attitude towards the Azure Lotus ruler." Luyin replied, "I understand. Uncle Jiang will overthink things just like me." Mr. Mu said, "It's not a bad thing to think too much. If you didn't think too much, how would you have discovered this?" Luyin's heart was heavy. "Master, what should I do?" Mr. Mu looked at Luyin. The Azure Lotus Shield held a very high position in Luyin's heart, and he respected the Azure Lotus Shield as well as the Blood Tower and the Gate of Wonder. He respected them all. He had to admit that. The few eternal realms from the 9 Firmaments universe treated Luyin very well. Therefore he discovered this situation now. Luyin was at a loss. He had thought that he could handle this matter rationally and investigate the red specters under the stars. Then he would look for the Azure Lotus Emperor. No matter what reason the Green Lotus Emperor had for hiding it, everything had to be explained clearly. At the very least, this was a matter between human civilizations. At the very least there were no enemies. Furthermore, even if the Azure Lotus ruler had a secret, why did he have to tell him? There was nothing wrong with the Azure Lotus ruler. This was the logic, but it involved another human civilization and also involved the Heartless Path. He wanted an answer and did not want the Azure Lotus Emperor to walk in the direction of the heartless path. Lu Yin was very clear that he had overthought this matter. The massacre in Emotionless Valley had caused him to reject the Red Shirt civilization beneath the astral plane, and he had even discovered that the Jade Lotus Emperor had concealed his contact with Xuanhuan. This made him want to find out the answer, and he did not wish for the Jade Lotus Emperor to have anything to do with the heartless path. Mr. Mu patted Lu Yin's shoulder. Little Seven, do you believe that people can change? Lu Yin fell silent. If one day you discover that I have betrayed humanity, what will you do? Lu Yin's body trembled as he looked at Mr. Mu in shock. Mr. Mu looked at Lu Yin as well, and when their gazes met, Mr. Mu saw the confusion and even fear in Lu Yin's eyes. He sighed deeply. Is it hard to decide? Lu Yin remained silent. He didn't say anything. Mr. Mu said, there's no sense of accomplishment in being your master. You're too talented and you're blessed with many opportunities. Every time I see you, I get a different feeling. Sometimes, I wonder if you'll surpass me the next time I see you. The first time this idea appeared was in the Tianyuan universe. Back then you did not know the square-inch distance. Mr. Mu laughed. It's funny, isn't it? Now you know how big the gap was between you and me back then? Lu Yin looked at Mr. Mu. Was there a difference? It was bigger than the sky. During the battle in Immemorial City he thought that he was very strong. However, when facing Yu Sang Tian he didn't even have the strength to fight back. If it weren't for the tricks left behind by fate, they would have been finished. At his peak, Mr. Mu was a scoundrel who could unite with the will of the universe and injure an eternal life realm expert. For Mr. Mu to have such thoughts, Lu Yin could imagine how high Mr. Mu's expectations of him had been. Having a disciple like you is both a blessing and a misfortune. I don't have much to teach you on the path of cultivation. Fortunately, I'm much older than you so I can teach you a principle. Mr. Mu's expression was solemn as he looked at Lu Yin. If there comes a day when I betray humanity, you should not hesitate. Kill. Lu Yin's pupils shrank as he stared at Mr. Mu. Mr. Mu was very serious, so serious that it was terrifying. Because the one who betrayed humanity is no longer your master. From the moment he decided to betray humanity, he became another person. Your master will never betray humanity. Remember this and always remember that your master will never betray humanity. Therefore, the one who betrayed humanity is not your master. Kill. Do not hesitate, do not be lost, and do not be afraid. This traitor killed your master. He destroyed your master's personality and trampled on your master's dignity. This person is an enemy. Kill him and avenge your master. Lu Yin stared at Mr. Mu in a daze. Mr. Mu raised his hand and patted Lu Yin's head. I am like this and so are others. The one who helped you is one person and the one who harmed you is another. The physical body did not change but the personality changed. This person killed someone you respected so you must avenge him. The person you killed is not the person you respected but the enemy. Lu Yin's voice was dry. Yes, like this? Mr. Mu retracted his hand and sighed. It's very difficult, isn't it? Lu Yin nodded subconsciously. If Mr. Mu betrayed humanity, would he really kill him without hesitation? If Qing Lianyu concealed his contact with Xuanhuan and did something that was detrimental to the three human civilizations, would he really kill him without hesitation? Mr. Mu sighed. Your cultivation has improved so quickly that you can't look at everything in the world numbly. Some people are ruthless because of the baptism of time. What these people do may be wrong but to them it is not wrong. You are used to seeing life and death. What you don't want to lose is precisely what you will lose in the end. Lu Yin clenched his fists. No one can accompany you for eternity. Perhaps the appearance of the heartless path is a good thing for you. Mr. Mu looked at Lu Yin and said, Go and get in touch with the heartless path. Perhaps it will help you. There is a reason for the appearance of any path of cultivation. Lu Yin was biased against the heartless path from the beginning and had never thought of cultivating it. However, Mr. Mu could see clearly that the heartless path might help Lu Yin make up for his lack of mental state. He had too little experience. Although numbness was not a good word, it was good medicine for some people. There were black and white walls to the mental state, but the black side was not as tall as the white side in Lu Yin's heart. Don't think too much. Qing Lianyu concealed his contact with the red coats under the stars because he did not want to come into contact with the heartless path. Mr. Mu comforted him. Lu Yin nodded. This was also why he was relieved. Perhaps this was the reason. Not long after, Lu Yin left the three universes and arrived at the Red Coat civilization under the stars. He teleported into the Kanglan Valley. He did not leave for long. At this moment, Chu Songyun was looking for Ba Yu in the Heartless sect. Although he was not from the Heartless sect, he could go anywhere with his status as a 6 red coat. Aside from a few Eternal Realm cultivators, no one was his match. However, he was also very self-aware. After entering the Heartless sect, he first visited Xuanhuan and obtained Xuanhuan's approval before looking for Baiyu. Baiyu was in seclusion, and when she heard that Lu Yin had given Xuanhuan a test, she immediately went into seclusion. After Lu Yin returned to the Kanglan Valley, he scanned the sourcebox array and saw that there were no changes. He then looked at the Heartless sect and decided to wait for a while before heading over. A month later, news that Xuanhuan was looking for Baiyu spread. The outside world knew that he was looking for Baiyu, but they did not know why. Some people even said that Xuanhuan liked Baiyu, and this rumor spread even further. It even reached He Zhao's ears. He Zhao's heartless path allowed him to truly love every woman, and Baiyu was the same. The more he loved her, the more pain he felt, and the closer he was to being heartless. Even though He Zhao had achieved immortality, Baiyu had never left his heart. Baiyu was the last woman he had ever loved. When he heard that Xuanhuan was looking for Baiyu, he could not sit still and headed to the Heartless sect to stop Xuanhuan. "You're looking for Baiyu?" He Zhao looked at Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan's extraordinary aura caused others to have a good impression of him, but this good impression was disgusting to those who knew about it. Xuanhuan and He Zhao's auras were similar, but one was clearly emotionless, yet he wanted to be affectionate, while the other was affectionate yet heartless. These two people with similar auras were completely opposite. Facing He Zhao, Xuanhuan was not afraid. He could directly say that Baiyu was not worthy of being his master, and He Zhao was the same in his eyes. "Yes. What? It has nothing to do with you. Baiyu's matter is related to me." He Zhao was not angry and he smiled as he stared at Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan was calm. "You are not worthy." He Zhao's gaze turned cold. "What did you say?" "You are not worthy," Xuanhuan said calmly. Baiyu was not worthy of being his master, and He Zhao was not worthy of mentioning Baiyu. That was what Xuanhuan thought. He Zhao took a step forward. His body moved and his mind moved. His life force was released and it pressed down on Xuanhuan. He was a 70% red robe, and no matter how special Xuanhuan was in his civilization, he deserved to die for disrespecting immortality. Xuanhuan was not afraid. He had long wanted to experience a 70% red robe eternal life realm. Life force and eternal matter were absolute powers that eternal life realm experts could use to suppress non-eternal life realm experts. Unless one reached the level of a scoundrel, it would be difficult to resist. However, those below the eternal life realm who reached the limit could comprehend life force and use eternal matter. This was the origin of the word limit, and it was the first step to becoming a scoundrel. When He Zhao's life force came, Xuanhuan's gaze was calm. Around him, withered leaves surrounded him, moving without wind. The life force swept past like a gust of wind, but it could not move the withered leaves. He Zhao was shocked, but he was not surprised. "I have long heard of the 10,000 pine withered leaf realm, but it is not enough." After he finished speaking, the life force that was blocked by the withered leaves suddenly gathered, forming a white sword in He Zhao's palm. He slashed with the sword, and it was the great heavenly cycle sword intent. Xuanhuan retreated and waved his hand. Withered leaves blocked in front of him, and life force surged out from his body, connecting with the dancing withered leaves, forming a forest of withered leaves. The forest of withered leaves took root in the void, facing the great heavenly cycle sword intent head-on. In the Heartless sect, many cultivators were watching. Looking at the red robes under the stars, only Xuanhuan and Xiaman were qualified to challenge an eternal life realm expert. However, a challenge was a challenge and it was almost impossible to win. He Zhao's sword intent slashed down, constantly shattering the forest of withered leaves, forcing Xuanhuan to retreat step by step. After all, Xuanhuan was not an eternal life realm expert. It was quite difficult for him to comprehend life force from the concept of withered leaves. The forest of withered leaves had long been integrated with eternal matter, but it still could not block He Zhao's sword intent. He Zhao raised his hand, and the sword intent rushed towards Xuanhuan, as if he wanted to kill him with one slash. Xuanhuan raised his left arm, and the red umbrella appeared in his hand. His right hand grabbed the umbrella handle, and with a clang he pulled out his sword and slashed horizontally. Chapter 4289. The great heavenly cycle sword intent clashed with the red sword. Xuanhuan was pushed back. The red sword vibrated and made a soft sound. There were even cracks on it. He Zhao smiled and walked casually. However, every step he took was in accordance with the sword intent around him. With every step, the sword intent increased. Do you really think you can fight eternal life? They have praised you too much, but they don't know that people like you will fall harder the higher you are praised. You look down on the heartless path. Die under the heartless path. After that, the sword swept across and the sword shadows merged. It was the step he took just now. Elder Chiu was also in the heartless sect. He was originally from the heartless sect. Seeing He Zhao's sword, he was shocked. The heavenly cycle sword intent and the vitality formed the great heavenly cycle sword intent of He Zhao. This is an eternal life realm technique. No one below eternal life can resist it. Chu Songyun held the sword hilt tightly. He exhaled and opened the red umbrella. Limitless umbrella prison. The dead leaves danced. It sealed the surroundings and trapped He Zhao. Then layers of dead leaves enveloped him. It was constantly sealed. He Zhao did not care. He looked at Chu Songyun, who was outside the dead leaves. You don't want to practice the heartless path. But you used the inheritance of the underworld red shirt. Is this your dignity? Chu Songyun did not care. The limitless umbrella prison was ineffective against the underworld red shirt. However, there was no other way. Compared to the eternal life realm, he was indeed much weaker. The remaining underworld red shirt could not even withstand He Zhao's sword. No, they could not even withstand the pressure of the vitality. Soon, the 6 layers of limitless umbrella prison enveloped him. Chu Songyun's eyes were cold. He raised the red sword in his right hand and closed his eyes. Victory or defeat would be decided by the next sword. He Zhao raised his eyebrows. The great heavenly cycle sword intent slashed. The limitless umbrella prison was shaken. Kept shaking. Elder Chiu and the rest retreated again. If he was facing the eternal life realm of other civilizations, the 6 layers of limitless umbrella prison would definitely give him a headache. However, the heartless path in the limitless umbrella prison was useless against He Zhao. This move could at most trap He Zhao for a while. What did Chu Songyun want to do? Where did his confidence in challenging He Zhao come from? In the heartless sect, Jiu drank a mouthful of wine. His gaze fell on Chu Songyun. Interesting. He Zhao. He Zhao was He Zhao. But even if you don't stay, where can you go? Even if the entire red robes under the stars gave up on the heartless Tao, you, Chu Songyun, would not be able to escape. Back in the Azure Wave Valley, Lu Yin was watching this battle with interest. Chu Songyun was much more powerful than Xiamen, and he was also hiding some of his strength. If He Zhao had been slightly weaker and was comparable to the humanoid green immortal or the droplet green immortal, then Chu Songyun might not have lost. Of course, it was impossible for him to win. He had not reached the level of a scoundrel. However, if he didn't lose, he was almost at the level of a scoundrel. He Zhao didn't know what Chu Songyun wanted to do. Seeing the red sword in Chu Songyun's hand becoming more and more oppressive, he didn't want to wait any longer. He didn't want to become Chu Songyun's stepping stone. He Zhao couldn't afford to lose face like that. With that thought in mind, Zhang Shen's life force surged. Taking a step forward, the great Zhou sword will fuse together and slashed out. Bang! With a loud sound, the 6 layers of the limitless umbrella prison were directly broken. Chu Songyun's red umbrella cracked inch by inch, but it did not shatter like Xiamen. He Zhao loosened his grip on the sword hilt and pushed it with his palm. The sword shot towards Chu Songyun's face. If Chu Songyun did not dodge, this sword would pierce through his head. At this moment, Chu Songyun opened his eyes. Under everyone's shocked gaze, another umbrella bone lit up. 70% red coat. That was 70% red coat. Elder Chiu was shocked. 70% red coat? The rest of the people who saw it were stunned. 70% red coat? Without reaching eternal life but with 70% red coat. The legend was true. There was really someone who could comprehend 70% red coat without reaching eternal life. When He Zhao saw it, his eyes narrowed. What followed was a monstrous killing intent. No matter how highly Chu Songyun was valued by Xuanhuan and the rest, it was fine if he killed him. Could it be that they would blame him for killing a 60% red coat? The value of eternal life was incomparable. However, 70% red coat under eternal life was different. It was another concept, a concept that only existed in legends. Only when one reached 70% red coat under eternal life could one achieve 120% merciless Tao. 120% merciless Tao was theoretically the strongest red coat under the stars. It was invincible. Now that Chu Songyun had reached 70% red coat, it meant that he could achieve 120% merciless Tao in the future. This was not something He Zhao could accept. Facing He Zhao's sword, Chu Songyun's red sword hummed. An indescribable tragedy spread. The red sword pierced into the umbrella bone, heartless sorrow as a sword. This was a kind of realm. The realm of Red Sword and Merciless Tao could only be comprehended by Eternal Life Realm. This was also Chu Songyun's killer move. With 70% Red Coat's Merciless Tao, he slashed out. Bang! The swords clashed. The crack in the void spread across the entire Merciless Tao. Yijiao's sword was blocked. This was a sword that merged with his great heavenly cycle sword intent. It seemed light, but the sword intent was extremely heavy. Chu Songyun used a sword that could only be comprehended by Eternal Life Realm Merciless Tao. This sword was also the meaning of the red sword piercing into the umbrella bone. Yixiao was clearly an Eternal Life Realm Red Coat under the stars. However, at this moment, everyone had an illusion that Chu Songyun was the real Red Coat under the stars. A shattering sound was heard. Yijiao's sword was shattered. Chu Songyun took 3 steps back and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale and the 7 umbrella bones dimmed. He tried his best, but he could only block Yijiao's sword. Yixiao did not expect his sword to be blocked. This sword could be regarded as his killer move. It was enough to make other Eternal Life Realm experts pay attention to it. Although it was not the strongest, only those of the same level could block it. Chu Songyun blocked this sword, which meant that he had broken through the limit of Eternal Life Realm. He had truly stepped into the level where he could fight against Eternal Life Realm experts. He could be considered a scoundrel. This sword made Chu Songyun a god, but made Yixiao a laughingstock. He would never allow such a thing to happen. Yixiao, who boasted of his unparalleled temperament, revealed a shocking killing intent at this moment. Chu Songyun clenched his sword hilt and stared at Yixiao. He had no intention of retreating. Yixiao was about to attack when a cough sounded. He paused and looked to the side. Over there, Jianghu slowly walked out. Chu Songyun also saw Jianghu walking out. He slowly loosened his grip on his sword hilt. Jianghu drank a mouthful of wine and suppressed his cough. He looked at the two. Have you fought enough? This is Heartless Sect, not the wilderness. Yixiao was about to speak, but Chu Songyun spoke first. Enough. Yixiao stared at Chu Songyun, disrespecting eternal life, you deserve to die. Chu Songyun sheathed his red sword and kept the red umbrella. He did not seem to care at all. Jianghu burped. Yixiao, what are you doing here? Yixiao looked at Jianghu and asked, Senior, are you trying to protect Chu Songyun? This person is not from Heartless Sect and does not respect the Heartless Path. He wants to leave the red coat under the stars. Such a person deserves to die. Jianghu laughed. His mouth is stubborn but his body is honest. Look, this Chu Songyun has reached 70% red coat. Do you still think he does not respect the Heartless Path? Yixiao wanted to refute but he could not. A person who could reach 70% red coat under the non-eternal life realm, how could he not want to cultivate the Heartless Path? No one would believe it even if he said it. Although Chu Songyun did say that he wanted to leave the red coat under the stars. But so what? When he revealed his power as a 70% red spectre, he was destined to be special in this red spectre civilization. Although Yixiao was unwilling, he knew that it was impossible to kill Chu Songyun in front of Jianghu. I'm here to look for Baiyu. Jianghu looked at Yixiao. Baiyu does not want to see you. Yixiao's eyes flashed and he said calmly, Senior, please allow me to talk to Baiyu. Jianghu shook his head. I did not stop you, but if Baiyu does not want to see you, you cannot force her. Yixiao bowed slowly to show his agreement, then looked in a direction. Baiyu, come out and meet me. No one responded. Chu Songyun faced Jianghu and bowed. I'm here to look for Baiyu. Yixiao's gaze was sharp as he stared at Chu Songyun. Jianghu was speechless. Did Lu Yin ask you to seek forgiveness from Baiyu? Yes. Yixiao frowned. Lu Yin? Then you should go back. Baiyu does not want to see you. Why? Your words are too harsh. I only know how to speak the truth. Jianghu? Yixiao stared at Chu Songyun. Stay away from Baiyu. Otherwise you will not be so lucky next time. Chu Songyun faced Yixiao. You are not worthy. Murderous intent surged in Yixiao's eyes and he turned to leave. At this moment, a figure appeared and entered the Heartless Sect. Seeing this person, Yixiao's eyes flashed. Mr. Lu. Jianghu, Chu Songyun, Elder Qiu and the others all looked over. Lu Yin's name had already spread throughout the red coats under the stars, but not many had seen him before. There had only been 2 battles in the Valley of Storms. In the first battle, he had destroyed 6/3 red coats with one finger and forced them to retreat. In the second battle, he had grabbed the limitless umbrella prison with one hand and destroyed Xiaman's limitless umbrella prison. Although his opponents were 6/3 red coats, he had done it too easily, so easily that it did not seem real. Especially when he had destroyed Xiaman's limitless umbrella prison with one hand, It was hard to imagine. They did not know how strong Luin was, but they had already pictured him in their minds. However, they were still surprised when they saw him in person. They did not expect Luin to be so young and so thin and weak. He was completely different from the burly man they had imagined. It was also Chu Songyun's first time seeing Luin. His attitude was very respectful, not because of Lu Yin's strength, but because Luin could lead him to another path of cultivation civilization. Luin came and looked at Xiao, but he ignored him. Then he looked at Jiuwen and smiled. "It's so lively." Jiuwen smiled. "It's very lively." Xiao looked at Lu Yin's back. He did not have the temperament he had when they first met. His gaze was cold. Luin looked at Chu Songyun. "Baiyu is unwilling to forgive you?" Chu Songyun was helpless. "I can't see her. This shows that you are not sincere enough." "May I ask, Mr. Lu, how can I show more sincerity?" Chu Songyun asked. He was really asking for advice. In the red coats under the stars, the word, sincerity, was far from the cultivation world. How could there be sincerity in the path of ruthlessness? Luin glanced at Xiao. "Help Baiyu beat up whoever she hates the most. Sincerity is enough." Xiao looked at Luin coldly. "Is Mr. Lu talking about me?" Luin and Xiao looked at each other and did not answer. On the other side, Chu Songyun said, "I am not his opponent now." Chapter 4290. Luin put his hands behind his back. "Then I'll wait until you completely suppress him." "Won't I have to wait for a long time?" "There is no time in cultivation. You can wait and I can wait too." "Okay. I won't let you wait too long." Cold murderous intent flashed in Xiao's eyes. These two people were talking about him and he was still here. "Mr. Lu, you let Chu Songyun deal with me. Why don't you try it yourself?" Jiuwen glanced at Xiao. He was very sure that Baiyu was not Lu Yin's opponent, so Xiao was not much better. However, he could see Mr. Lu's strength. The others were also curious. Luin was not in the eternal realm. However, they felt that he was stronger than Chu Songyun. At least Chu Songyun could not defeat Xiaman easily. Even if he had comprehended 7 points of red, he could only be stronger than Xiaman. However, it was impossible for him to break the Sinluo umbrella prison like Luin. Luin was given 7 points of red as soon as he arrived. They wanted to know how Luin compared to a real eternal realm expert. Chu Songyun was also looking forward to it. Luin smiled at Xiao. "You are not worthy." Xiao was furious. Chu Songyun was stunned. He finally understood why others were so angry when he said these 3 words. It was really disgusting. Jiuwen was also speechless. "You are courting death." Xiao was about to attack. Luin looked at Jiuwen and asked, "Senior, control your people. Don't look for trouble." Jiuwen drank a mouthful of wine. Who looked for trouble? He finally found out. This little guy was a little troublesome. "Okay, Xiao, you can go back." Xiao stared at Luin. "Sect Master. This person humiliated me. He humiliated the red coat under the stars. Sect Master, please allow me to fight this person." Jiuwen shook his head. "Go back." Xiao stared at Jiuwen and asked, "I want to fight with this person." Jiuwen shouted, "Go back." These 2 words were like a monstrous bell. Xiao was shocked and took 5 steps back. He had no choice but to leave. Before he left, he stared at Luin coldly. He would definitely make this person pay the price. Luin praised, "Senior Jiuwen is still the most majestic." 2 words scared an eternal realm expert away. The others weren't affected, and they didn't feel the pressure of the wine, but Luin did. That was because those 2 words also rang in his ears, but he didn't take even half a step back. Jiuwen wanted to intimidate Xiao, but he also wanted to warn Luin at the same time. However, Lu Yin's strength had exceeded his expectations, and he was definitely stronger than Xiao. He looked at Luin deeply. Mr. Lu is still not used to the environment of a red specter under the stars. There are some things that you shouldn't do. Luin shrugged. That's what I do in my own civilization. There aren't that many rules. This is a red specter under the stars. Could it be that the red coat under the stars does not wish to interact with the civilization that I am from? Jiuwen looked at Luin. Are you willing to take us there? Luin rubbed his head. I don't think I have a choice. But as a fellow human civilization, you should understand that you have to be wary of others. My civilization is the complete opposite of the red coat civilization below the stars. Killing, but our civilization is very peaceful. There is a lot of love. If the 2 civilizations meet, with the power of the red specters under the stars, we will be the ones at a disadvantage. The wine asked, then what do you want? As he spoke, he glanced at Chu Songyun. Bai Yu is in seclusion and will not see you for the time being. Chu Songyun glanced at Lu Yin and left silently. Don't leave the Heartless sect for the time being. He Xiao will not let you go, Jiuwen reminded him. Although Chu Songyun did not know how to speak and was emotionless, he was not stupid. He stayed in the Heartless sect with peace of mind. The surrounding people had already dispersed. Only Jiuwen and Lu Yin were left in the square. One must look at the long term. Mr. Lu, no matter how much you delay, you cannot make us ignore the other civilization. You should understand this. Lu Yin nodded. I understand. That's why I came to find you after half a year in the Valley of Storms. Jiuwen asked, state your conditions. There are no conditions. Jiuwen was surprised. No conditions? Lu Yin smiled. If there are conditions, wouldn't it be the same as betraying your own civilization? Jiuwen shook his head. We are both from the human civilization. There is no such thing as betrayal. Lu Yin looked at Jiuwen and stared at his gaze. This old man was really good at hiding. He could not see through the Nine Heavens universe at all. If he had not coincidentally seen the gourd mark, he would not have been able to see through this. I would like to give it a try. He looked at the countless people walking on the ground outside the Heartless sect. They all wanted to join the Heartless sect, but they could not see it even though it was right in front of them. A try? Senior, please select a group of ignorant children and send them to the Valley of Storms. I will personally teach them. After 20 years, they will enter this civilization and see what happens to this group of people. If this group of people is affected by the Heartless path, won't you be even more unwilling to bring us into contact with your civilization? Exactly the opposite. Lu Yin's expression was serious. If this group of people that I personally teach is still affected by the Heartless path, I will immediately bring the red coats under the stars to our civilization. Because I know very well that it is only a matter of time before the two civilizations come into contact with each other. If we cannot prevent them from being affected by the Heartless path, it is better to come into contact with each other earlier and let our civilization cultivate the Heartless path to increase their strength. Think about it. What if our civilization can have a few more eternal realm cultivators? Then won't our civilization become a fishing civilization? Jiuwen grunted. It's good that you can think it through. But what if they are not affected? Lu Yin said, then it proves that the Heartless path is not as powerful as I thought. This civilization's cultivation path will not bring much progress to our civilization. However, because of the Heartless path's influence, our civilization will become unstable internally. This is not something that I want to see. So, Senior, do you understand what I mean? Jiuwen sighed. Either it will definitely affect you and transform you together, or it will definitely not affect you and develop separately. Is that what you mean? Lu Yin looked at Jiuwen and asked, Senior, do you agree? Jiuwen laughed. Alright, I'll let you see how great the influence of the Heartless path is. I look forward to having a few more eternal realm cultivators in your civilization. Lu Yin said, alright. In that case, please promise the red coats under the stars that they will not attack the people of the Valley of Storms. Otherwise, if they attack directly, I will lose my people. Jiuwen said, I can only guarantee that the people of the Heartless sect will not attack. There are countless people in the red coat civilization under the stars. Even the heroic ancestor cannot guarantee this. Lu Yin's goal was to let a group of people from the three universes enter the red coats under the stars to see if they would be affected. Now that he had achieved his goal, it was fine. If that group of people was not affected, bringing the red coats under the stars into contact with the three universes would be fine. If they were affected, they would not be able to come into contact with them. As for the outcome of this bet, it did not depend on promises but on absolute strength. The red coats under the stars were very strong, but they were not weak either. Lu Yin's teleportation was enough to ensure that the red coats under the stars would not be able to track the three universes. Of course, this was only his initial plan. Now that he knew that Chancellor Azure Lotus had interacted with Jiuwen, things were different. He still did what he had to do under the premise that he did not know about this so that no one would be able to tell. At the same time, it was more important to find out the relationship between Chancellor Azure Lotus and Jiuwen. Why did Chancellor Azure Lotus not mention the existence of the red coats under the stars? Why did Jiuwen not say anything? Why did the red coats under the stars not come into contact with the three universes after so many years? He wanted to know all these. A total of 10,000 people were selected to enter the Valley of Storms. They were all orphans and were still infants. They did not have any memories. When this group of people was sent to the Valley of Storms, the people from the Heartless sect received an order not to attack anyone in the Valley of Storms. This order confused the outside world because Lu Yin was the only one in the Valley of Storms. They did not know that 10,000 people had been sent in. It was not until 20 years later, when a group of people walked out of the Valley of Storms, that they finally understood. In 20 years this group of people had grown up. 20 years ago, Lu Yin sent this group of children to the 3 universes. At the same time he selected a group of children of the same age from the 3 universes and began to nurture them. At first, he had planned to find a group of people who were good at swindling others and send them to the red coats under the stars. However, he realized that this was not right. This would be easily seen through. Of course, the excuse that Mount Supreme could accommodate some people was an excuse, but it would still take some effort. Thus, he had the 3 universes prepare a group of children of the same age to nurture. He had those who were rich in emotions and good at bewitching others to nurture them. He wanted this group of children to have a strong will and be able to influence others in turn. This group of children would also be taught cultivation, and they would be taught very carefully. After all, according to the red coats under the stars, Lu Yin had personally taught them, so they could not be bad. After 20 years, this group of children was brought to the red coats under the stars and then released from the Valley of Storms. These children did not know anything about the 3 universes. From the beginning, they had been taught that they were in the Valley of Storms, so they were not afraid of being seen through. The people who taught them one-on-one would all disguise themselves as Lu Yin, and they would only know one Lu Yin in their lives. They were all very smart and good at bewitching others. Lu Yin did not believe that these people who had been trained by the 3 universes would be influenced by the red coats under the stars to cultivate the path of heartlessness. There were always people watching outside the Valley of Storms, but they were not spying on him. They knew Lu Yin's strength, so it was impossible for them to spy on him. They just wanted to keep an eye on him, and some even wanted to be his disciple. Look, so many people are coming out. The others looked over and saw a group of people walk out from the Valley of Storms. They were all young men and women. Some walked in 2s and 3s while laughing and talking, while others walked alone. There were at least 10,000 of them. The cultivators around the Valley of Storms were stunned. Why had so many people suddenly appeared? They hurriedly stopped one of them. "Brother, are you Mr. Lu's disciples?" The man who was stopped had a wooden expression. He looked at the people in front of him, and there was a hint of fear in his eyes. He whispered, "Yes." "What are you cultivating in there?" The man pursed his lips. "Well, Mr. Lu doesn't want us to talk about it." The people around him looked at each other, and some asked a few more questions, but they did not get anything out of him. In the end, these people treated him to a meal because the man said he was hungry. The same scene happened many times, and the 10,000 people all left. Lu Yin was looking forward to what these people would bring to the red coats under the stars. Chapter 4291. The Heartless Path. People were heartless and things were heartless, but being heartless was a choice of people. It was the direction of life, not the essence of life. The ultimate meaning of cultivating the ruthless path was to change the essence of life. It was just like how Lu Yin had asked Patriarch Lu Yuan to plant the instant transmission technique. However, due to the essence of human life, the instant transmission technique had to be seen before it could be used. This was because humans were afraid of the unknown, which determined this characteristic. The direction of the heartless path was to change the essence of life, making people no longer human, or rather, no longer ordinary people. However, it was very difficult to change the essence of life. Not to mention those ordinary cultivators, even if it was an eternal life realm expert, how many people could change it? Even He Xiao and those who had done all kinds of evil things could not do it. This was not something that could be done by being heartless. In Lu Yin's opinion, even drinking wine might not be able to do it. Since it could not change the essence of life, most of the things that people were used to did not change, such as family and inheritance. What changed was the way people interacted with each other. The Lien family. The red coat under the stars was a relatively powerful family. Although they had never produced an eternal realm expert, they had never stopped producing 6/10 of a red coat. The historical records of the family began. The Lien family had produced more than 10 6/10 of a red coat. It was not that there were no more. There were no records. Some family forces had produced an eternal realm expert. They were glorious, but they would also fall quickly. Especially the red coat civilization under the stars who cultivated the heartless path. The eternal realm expert might not even care about his family. They were walking in the direction of changing the essence of life. It was difficult to cut off all connections. Some families had never produced an eternal realm expert, but they had experts for generations. Such families could also be passed down for a long time, and the Lien family was one of them. On this day the Lien family was as usual. Although there were many family members, they rarely gathered together. Until one person arrived, the Lien family had no choice but to gather the family members to welcome him. The person who came was Elder Chio. Lien Gui greets Elder Chio. Greetings, Elder Chio. The Lien family members bowed respectfully. Elder Chio nodded and looked at Lien Gui. How are Lien Jian's injuries? Lien Gui was the head of the Lien family, and Lien Jian was the 6/10 of a red coat of the Lien family. He was also the first person to challenge the Valley of Storms. He was severely injured by Lu Yin and did not dare to attack again. Lien Gui said respectfully, "The patriarch is still in seclusion. We don't know." As he spoke, he looked curiously at the person behind Elder Chio. Was a young man. Could he be Elder Chio's junior? He had never heard of Elder Chio having a descendant. Chio Lao had always been alone. Elder Chio looked at the young man. He's still in seclusion. What do you think? Lien Gui's eyes twitched. His thoughts raced. For Elder Chio to be so respectful to this person, he was definitely not an ordinary person. Although Elder Chio was not as powerful as Xiaman and Chu Songyun, no one dared to look down on him because of his seniority and his relationship with the substitute sovereign of the Heartless sect, Baiyu. He could even talk to an Eternal Life Realm expert. Who was this person? He went through all the Eternal Life Realm he knew in his mind. Although he had not seen all of them, they did not seem to be right. Wait, he suddenly thought of someone and looked over in shock. The person who followed Elder Chio to the Lien family was Lu Yin. This time he was here for the history of the Lien family. He wanted to understand the Red Coat civilization under the stars. History was the best language. However, the oldest historical records were in the Heartless sect and could only be read by Elder Chiowen. He also wanted to investigate Elder Chiowen, but Elder Chiowen would not let him read it easily. Therefore he stared at the ancient families in the Red Coat civilization. Although the history of these families was not that long, piecing it together could give him some understanding. In particular, the history of these families would record some unimportant and unexplainable things. These things might give him some clues. Lu Yin looked at Lien Gui. I'm Lu Yin. Sorry to disturb you. Lien Gui was shocked and bowed deeply. Lien Gui greets Mr. Lu. Behind him the Lien family also bowed. Greetings, Mr. Lu. Lu Yin was not an Eternal Life Realm expert, but in many people's hearts he was not weaker than an Eternal Life Realm expert. This was especially so for the Lien family. They knew how serious the patriarch's injuries were. This person could injure the patriarch without even showing his face. No matter what status Lu Yin had in the Red Coat world, at least in the Lien family, no one dared to offend him. They did not expect the Heartless sect to protect them after offending Lu Yin. Lu Yin said, Lien Jian's injuries are that serious? He's been in seclusion until now. I was the one who hit him too hard. Lien Gui and the others did not know what to say. They had never thought that they would encounter such a situation. What was the meaning of this? Chio Lao also found it strange. Not to mention the Red Coat world, even in normal civilizations such things rarely happened. He coughed. Mr. Lu is here to visit Lien Jian. What? Are you not going to invite us in? Lien Gui reacted and hurriedly invited Lu Yin and Chio Lao to take a seat. When everyone was seated, Chio Lao began to talk. He tried to get closer to Lien Gui. Of course he was not good at these things. After all, he also practiced the Heartless path. When had he ever done such things? But he had no choice. He was forced by Lu Yin. A few days ago, Lu Yin went to the Heartless sect to find Chio Lao. The first thing he said was, "Don't think that I don't know that you were the one who instigated Xiaman and the others to find trouble with me. You were also the one who revealed the location of the Valley of Storms." This sentence made Chio Lao's heart sink to the bottom. He quickly apologized. In the end, he was forced to bring Lu Yin to find a family with a long history. The first family he thought of was the Lien family. He had no choice. Lien Jian was the first to challenge the Valley of Storms and was familiar with him. Naturally, he thought of them first. Lu Yin did not say anything. He sat quietly and waited for Chio Lao to ask the Lien family to show him the family history. If Chio Lao could not do it, then he could not blame him. When he thought of this, he glanced at Chio Lao and Lien Gui. Chio Lao felt a chill run down his spine. He thought that with Baiyu, as long as he did not challenge Lu Yin, everything would be fine. But looking at his attitude, this person did not care about Baiyu at all. It could even be said that he did not have much respect for Sect Master Jiuwen, let alone him. Chio Lao had no choice but to work hard. The Great Six Red Coat had actually become so humble. Lien Gui was not feeling well either. Chio Lao was not good at getting close and did not talk about the main topic. He could only follow suit. He really wanted to know what these two were here for. Although he was being perfunctory, he could not let anyone see through it. For someone who practiced the heartless path, it was too difficult. The other members of the Lien family were waiting outside. They all had strange expressions as they listened to one pretend to get close to the other. It was strange no matter how they listened. Finally I heard that the Lien family has a long history. Mr. Liu is very interested in the history of the Red Coat civilization. Can you borrow it for a look? Qiu Lao could not take it anymore. This was torture for him. Originally, it was impossible to let an outsider see the family history, but Lien Gui was inexplicably relieved when he heard Qiu Lao's words. Just the family history? He had thought that something important had forced Qiu Lao to say this. He had been dealing with Qiu Lao while thinking of how to reject this unreasonable request. Now it seemed that this request was too reasonable. Lien Gui hurriedly stood up. So Mr. Liu wants to see the family history. Of course you can. Qiu Lao sighed. Luin nodded. Thank you. Then I'll have to trouble Patriarch Lien Gui. Let's go take a look. Won't the two of you rest? Lien Gui asked politely. Qiu Lao looked at Luin. Luin said, no need. We'll leave after reading. Thank you. Lien Gui sighed again. I should be the one thanking you. He thought about it and quickly brought Luin to see the family history. No one thought that Luin really came to the Lien family just to see the family history. The Lien family thought that he had come to settle the score. After a while, Luin and Qiu Lao left. The Lien family was completely relieved. Lien Gui wiped the sweat off his forehead. He was too tired. They left. A voice came, startling Lien Gui. He looked back and exhaled heavily. Ancestor? It was Lien Jian, the first six-part red to challenge the Kanglan Valley. He was severely injured by Lu Yin's finger. They left. Yes, they left. Just to see the family history? Lien Gui nodded. Lien Jian looked into the distance with a complicated expression. He knew when Lu Yin stepped into the Lien family, but he did not want to come out. It was not that he did not dare to, but that he did not want to be mocked by Qiu Lao. He was tricked by Qiu Lao to be the first six-part red to challenge the Kanglan Valley. It felt like he was paving the way for someone else. After this, his temper was much better. But why did Lu Yin want to see the family history? On the other side, Qiu Lao brought Lu Yin to the next family while Lu Yin recalled the family history he had seen. Most of the family history recorded the past of the Lien family, especially the six-part red they had produced. They were all recorded as legends. There were not many records of the entire civilization, but through the records of the six-part red, one could roughly understand the situation of the red shirt civilization below the astral plane. This civilization cultivated the heartless Tao and was heartless, but that did not mean that it was all about killing. Killing was limited to Heartless Valley, and there was very little killing in other places. It was much less than Lu Yin had expected. Because of the Heartless Tao, one's desire to compete for benefits had decreased. In the three universes, most of the conflicts between people were because of benefits. But here, the conflicts of benefits were much less because of heartlessness. Also, many people did not have emotional ties, so there were fewer conflicts. There was also face. Heartless people did not need face. This meant that the fighting between people in the three universes had been magnified by the Heartless Valley, which made Lu Yin feel disgusted. In reality, the red shirt civilization below the astral plane did not represent killing. Some people did not compete with others for their entire lives. They believed that this was heartless and that it was enough to ignore everyone. There were many people who thought this way. In general, the killing in the red shirt civilization below the astral plane was similar to that in the three universes. It was just that the methods and locations of the killings were concentrated, which made it seem more exaggerated. This was one of the reasons. Another reason was that the Heartless sect had not always existed. This was the history that Lu Yin was concerned about. The red shirt civilization below the astral plane had always had the Heartless Tao, but not the Heartless sect. In the Lien family's records, there were several six-part red that addressed Xuanhuan as the sect master, but there were no other sect masters. Could it be that Xuanhuan had founded the Heartless sect? Or was it the hero ancestor? There were not many records about the hero ancestor, and his words were filled with respect. He was very mysterious. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 4292. Although a family's history did not represent the entire Red Coat civilization, it could still be seen. Lu Yin was looking forward to the next family's history. Some families' histories were not shorter than the Lien families. Over the next few years, Lu Yin followed Elder Qiu to visit various families. He looked at their histories. He could not disturb them, but that would be immoral. They were all from a human civilization, and he could not do it without enmity. Not every family was willing to let Lu Yin look at their histories. They met a family that did not agree. Elder Chiu even threatened them, but they still did not agree. Lu Yin then asked Elder Chiu to chat with that family's ancestor. Elder Chiu had been through the experience of several families, so it was much easier for him to chat and get close to them. However, that ancestor was different. A heartless person who cultivated the heartless path was forced to chat with another person who cultivated the heartless path. That person was also a powerhouse who could decide the fate of their family. This feeling was too uncomfortable. This chat lasted for 3 days. Elder Chiu gave off a feeling that there was no end to it. He suddenly realized that this method was quite effective against people who cultivated the heartless path. When he had time, he would chat with that opponent and guarantee that he would go crazy. That family agreed. The ancestor could not take it anymore. He was forced to agree. From then on, Elder Chiu was able to make people speechless. No family dared to reject him. He did not beat or scold them. He would just chat with you. Who could stand it? Lu Yin realized that Elder Chiu was getting more and more carefree. He seemed to be developing into a chatterbox. Could someone who cultivated the heartless path do such a thing? During this time, other than Elder Chiu's legend, there were also legends about the group of people who left the Valley of Storms. Legend had it that someone from the Valley of Storms ate until several cultivators were poor. Those cultivators were deeply grateful to him and even became sworn brothers in the end. Legend had it that a woman from the Valley of Storms became the foster mother of a cultivation family's young master. Legend had it that someone from the Valley of Storms established a sect and recruited a group of Heartless Path cultivators. He threatened to rebel against the Heartless Path. Legend had it that there were many legends, all of which left the redcoats below the stars dumbfounded and in disbelief. Even Lu Yin was stunned by some of the legends. These people were too good at playing. Who had the 3 universes sent to teach them? This group of people was the best at flattery and swindling elites in the 3 universes. Were they influenced by the Heartless Path? What a joke. Heartless. Everyone had emotions in front of them. Without emotions, how could they deceive them? Bah, they weren't lying. They were talking about feelings. We have to talk about feelings. Even if he didn't have feelings for her, he had to create some feelings for her. The survival of these people was like a slap to the Heartless sect's face. Furthermore, it was being whipped repeatedly. The bartender was dumbfounded. How did Lu Yin teach him? Yu came out of seclusion. She had also heard of the legend and felt that something was amiss. However, she did not know what was wrong. She found Jiu and asked him to capture those people for interrogation as long as they didn't kill them. They had interrogated them, but the results had been completely meaningless. All they knew was that they had been born in the Valley of Storms, and that the person who had taught them was Lu Yin. The Eternal Life realm had exhausted all means to get the same result. This result made the Heartless Sect's people completely dumbfounded. Even the redcoats under the stars and some other powerful forces were dumbfounded because that group of people was affecting their disciples. Seeing a group of people shouting in the distance about overthrowing the Heartless Path and spreading emotions throughout the world, Yu found it jarring. Sect leader, are we really going to leave these people alone? Jiuwen was speechless. How? Yu gritted her teeth. If this continues, not only will it affect them, many people will be affected by them. I have high hopes for a disciple. Shishi. Jiuwen shook his head. Of course, he knew that Yu had been paying attention to a cultivator. She thought that the cultivator was suitable to be her disciple. Although she did not cultivate the Heartless Path in the Redcoat civilization under the stars, the more elite they were, the more they would be affected by the Heartless Path. It was the same for the disciple she had high hopes for. She did not mind taking in a Heartless Path cultivator as a disciple. However, that disciple had run away with a brat from the Valley of Storms. She was laughing all day long. She did not even care about cultivation, let alone the Heartless Path. Instead, she was talking about love. Yu wanted to kill that brat. There's also Elder Chiu. I heard that something is wrong with him recently. Jiuwen's gaze shifted. Then you can ask him what happened. This Elder Chiu is becoming more and more like someone from the Valley of Storms. Yu immediately went to find Elder Chiu. Elder Chiu was still with Lu Yin. However, Lu Yin was reading a family history while Elder Chiu was standing in the courtyard, bored. When Yu arrived, Elder Chiu was surprised. Acting sect leader? Yu looked at Elder Chiu. What exactly happened? Elder Chiu was helpless. This Mr. Lu insisted on reading the family history. Back then, I revealed the location of the Valley of Storms and instigated Lian Jian to challenge him. He had something on me and I had to take him to the various families. I have to say that the family history of these families is very valuable. Although I did not read it, there were times. That's enough. Why are you so long-winded? Bai was dissatisfied. Elder Chiu did not speak like this before. Elder Chiu smiled bitterly. I'm used to it. He's reading family history here? Yes. What do you think of him? Elder Chiu thought for a moment. Although we have known each other for a long time, we have not spoken much. Bai looked at Elder Chiu in disbelief. Elder Chiu smiled bitterly. This Mr. Lu does not like to talk. He spends most of his time reading family history. Some families have been passed down for a long time, but because of some changes they found a way to hide. We spend a lot of time looking for those families. Also, Bai interrupted, have you heard about the people from the Valley of Storms? Elder Chiu nodded. I have. Do they look like Lu Yin taught them? Bai asked. Elder Chiu thought for a moment. Yes. 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 Elder Chiu was certain. Although this Mr. Lu does not like to talk much, every time he speaks he hits the nail on the head. I feel that he can see through everyone. Bai frowned. He is very scheming. You can say that. Elder Chiu agreed, but then he said, but his nature is not bad. Bai snorted. He just hides it well. You should be careful around him. Don't be used by him without knowing. Elder Chiu nodded and looked at Bai. You should be careful too. Xuanhuan went to the emotionless sect to find you. Xiao went there immediately. He does not plan to let you go. Bai's gaze turned cold. I will not let him go either. Then she left. Elder Chiu sighed. Xiao was not someone to be trifled with. But this Mr. Lu did not seem to care at all. Soon after, Lu Yin arrived. Bai is very concerned about you. What is your relationship with her? Elder Chiu was not surprised that Lu Yin knew. At his level, unless he deliberately hid it, he could detect it. I saved her life when she was young. Lu Yin glanced at Elder Chiu. Does the emotionless path save people? Elder Chiu said, I just did it in passing. She does not cultivate the emotionless path, so she remembers it until now. Many times, because of our relationship, people look at me differently. Actually, I am one of the 6 red coats. Let's go to the next house. Lu Yin did not want to listen to nonsense. Elder Chiu was speechless. He had been interrupted 3 times. A few years passed quickly. In these few years, the most famous people were the people from the Valley of Storms. Now, everyone knew that the wine quiz promised Lu Yin not to touch the people from the Valley of Storms. The emotionless sect announced that whoever could influence the people from the Valley of Storms and make them cultivate the emotionless path would be allowed to join the emotionless sect directly. They would even be qualified to fight for the wine quiz. This condition caused countless cultivators to rush out to find the people from the Valley of Storms. Now, the people from the Valley of Storms did not dare to be so arrogant. Even if they could guarantee that they would not be affected by the emotionless path, being watched by dozens, or even hundreds of cultivators all day was unbearable. In these few years, some people from the Valley of Storms had also been affected. It could not be helped. Everyone had desires, and the smarter they were, the more they were like this. They analyzed the pros and cons and felt that joining the emotionless sect and cultivating the emotionless path was the only way out. As for the Valley of Storms, with Lu Yin behind them, could they be as powerful as the emotionless sect? If they knew that they came from the 3 universes, they would naturally not think this way. However, they themselves did not know. Lu Yin watched calmly as someone from the Valley of Storms was persuaded to join the emotionless sect. Mr. Lu, aren't you going to stop them? Elder Chiu asked. Lu Yin was indifferent. Everyone has their own ambitions. But if more than half of them are affected, then... Elder Chiu did not say anything. His position should be on the emotionless sect's side, not Lu Yin's. Lu Yin did not care. It was not that easy for the emotionless sect. Those people had been taught for 20 years. It was difficult to change the personality that was carved into their bones. Out of 10,000 people, there would definitely be someone who would be affected. This was expected, but Lu Yin believed that most people would not be affected. This was a battle between the 3 universes and the red coats from the underworld. The red coats' advantage was that this was their civilization. They came with the momentum and could do anything. The advantage of the 3 universes was that 20 years of training and teaching. This was a clash between civilizations. At this moment, even if he intervened, it would be useless. No, there was a way to change the situation and make those who joined the emotionless path regret. That was the path sword. He could use the path sword to cut off the experience of being tempted and keep the experience of those people before they were tempted. Those who tempted him would think that they had failed and would not be tempted again. Lu Yin had thought of this method before. His target was actually Xiao and the other Eternal Realm cultivators. If one day the three universes merged with the red coats from the underworld and became a human civilization, it would naturally be good to have a few more eternal realm cultivators. However, He Xiao and the others' actions were unacceptable, and they could not change themselves. The only way was to use the path sword to cut off their past experience. This was also what Xuanhuan had said. Changing the emotionless path would change them. However, if he wanted to cut off the past of an eternal realm cultivator, the karma consumed would be very exaggerated. He had cut off the karma of an immortal master and buried the path sword. The karma consumed was almost that of an eternal realm cultivator, and that was only a portion of the karma. He was not an eternal realm cultivator now. Cutting off the karma of an eternal realm cultivator above his level would naturally consume a lot of karma. Lu Yin could not bear to consume so much karma even for one eternal realm cultivator, let alone a few. Karma was one's strength. For these ordinary cultivators, the karma consumption was negligible. Chapter 4293. He would wait. If more than half of them were affected, he would make a move. His previous analysis of Xuanhuan was based on the fact that there was only one eternal life realm in the three universes. There were many eternal life realms in the three universes. He could not let the heartless Tao affect the three universes. He had to win this bet. Where are we going next? Elder Qiu thought for a moment. There are many families with inheritances in the universe, but there aren't many that have been around for as long as the Lian family. I've taken you around these past few years. The next family history might not be that important. It's fine, Lu Yin said. Elder Qiu said, then let's go to the Stonewall clan. Stonewall clan? Lu Yin was puzzled. What a strange name. Elder Qiu explained, the Stonewall clan's inheritance comes from their ancestor. That ancestor was just an ordinary cultivator. One day he accidentally saw a stone wall fall from the sky and brought it back to cultivate. That stone wall actually belonged to Sect Master Xuanhuan. For some reason, it fell and was coincidentally picked up. Later, Sect Master Xuanhuan searched for the stone wall and found that cultivator. He took him away and took him as a disciple. This is the origin of the Stonewall clan. Now that the Stonewall clan's ancestor has passed away, this clan is still considered the lineage of Senior Xuanhuan's disciple. Although the inheritance is not long, it is still considered complete. No one is looking for trouble, so you can go take a look. Xuanhuan's disciple? Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Okay. In the face of Lu Yin and Elder Qiu's visit, the Stonewall clan was very welcoming. They did not reject it at all. They even took out all the records of their ancestors and placed them in the most beautiful pavilion. There was a waterfall next to it. The sky was blue and it was very comfortable. Lu Yin gladly accepted it. He praised the Stonewall clan. The Stonewall clan was flattered, and they all retreated to not disturb Lu Yin. Elder Qiu did not expect the Stonewall clan to be so welcoming. It was different from their usual attitude toward outsiders. The Stonewall clan had always given outsiders the impression that they were cold and aloof, but now they were so respectful to Lu Yin. The current chief of the Stonewall clan did not hide anything and said to Elder Qiu, our ancestor has passed away, and our descendants are unable to protect the clan. Even though we are the descendants of Master Xuanhuan's disciple, we all practice the heartless Tao. No one can say for sure if Master Xuanhuan will intervene when our clan is in danger. Therefore, our clan has always avoided contact with outsiders as much as possible, not because we are arrogant, but because we are uneasy. Elder Qiu understood. The emotionless Tao couldn't be linked by emotions. This was the case for the Stonewall race. It was the same for the rest of the civilization. The reason why he could live so comfortably was not just because of his relationship with Bayu. Furthermore, he was a 6/10 red specter. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to attain his current status. Now that he was facing Lu Yin, all he could do was lead the way. He was in the same situation as the Stonewall tribe when they faced Lu Yin. Lu Yin was someone who could do some things. The history of the Stonewall clan was very short. After all, their heritage was not as long as the Lian clans. Most of the history was the autobiography of their ancestor, which described in detail his training in the Heartless sect and his interactions with Xuanhuan. It was not to reminisce, but to let the later generations know how to establish themselves in the Heartless sect. If the later generations were lucky enough to be valued by Xuanhuan again, they could use these experiences to do something. Of course, this was only the lowly possibility that he had left behind. This person cultivated the emotionless Tao, but he was not heartless to his own clan. His emotionless Tao was also divided into right and wrong. This was why this person was Xuanhuan's disciple. Lu Yin looked through the history of the clan and suddenly stared at a passage. If I had been able to find Master that time, perhaps I wouldn't have been trapped at 5/10 Red Spectre forever. My talent is average, and to be honest, I don't know why Master took me in as a disciple. Perhaps my understanding of the emotionless Tao is different. Unfortunately, no matter how much Master nurtured and taught me, I could only reach 5/10 Red Spectre in the end. But that time I could have broken through to 6/10 Red Spectre. I came out of seclusion, but I couldn't find Master. Everyone said that Master was in seclusion, but he wasn't. I knew that because the place where I was in seclusion was where Master was. Where did Master go? I couldn't find Master. For more than 300 years I couldn't find Master. I knew that Master was definitely not in this universe. Perhaps when Master returned he would never see me again. Lu Yin stared at this passage. This was the record of the ancestor of the Stonewall clan. He had been cultivating in Xianhuan's seclusion place and was close to breaking through to 6/10 Red Spectre. At the critical moment he had wanted to seek Xianhuan's guidance, but Xianhuan was not there. He had been searching for Xianhuan for 300 years. Lu Yin continued reading. Xianhuan had returned, but this ancestor had missed the opportunity to break through. In the end he was trapped at 5/10 Red Spectre forever. The later records were meaningless compared to the previous ones. Only this passage was left. More than 300 years. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. With the speed of an eternal realm, it would take more than 300 years to travel from the underworld Red Spectre civilization to the three universes. Of course this was not absolute. If Xianhuan knew the coordinates of the three universes he could travel even faster. With his strength he was definitely not an ordinary eternal realm cultivator. The so-called 300 years was based on the speed of an ordinary eternal realm cultivator. The time taken to disappear also included the time taken to return. If Xianhuan did not know the coordinates of the three universes, he would not be able to reach the three universes in 300 years. It could even be said that he would never be able to reach the three universes. Throughout the records of the ancestor of the Stonewall clan, this was the only part that involved Xianhuan's unknown whereabouts and time. Lu Yin looked through it again. The other records were useless, but this was the only one. He recalled the histories of the Lien family's long-established families, and the contents of the records allowed him to understand the underworld Red Spectres better. Those histories mostly recorded the rise and fall of their civilizations and their families, but this kind of family that did not have a long history would have some random records. He found the Stonewall clan's patriarch and asked if there were any other records of that ancestor, but the answer was that there were none. Rest assured, Mr. Lu. The Stonewall clan would not dare lie to you, Elder Chiu said. He could empathize with the Stonewall clan's experiences. Lu Yin looked at Elder Chiu. Does Senior Xianhuan still have any disciples? Elder Chiu shook his head. No. Ba Yu should be considered half a disciple. The rest are either dead like the Stonewall clan's ancestor, or none of them are alive. The Stonewall clan's patriarch had an unnatural expression. Continue. Next family. All right. Elder Chiu led the way and continued searching for the next family. Along the way, Lu Yin intentionally chatted with him from the Stonewall clan to the Lien family. He analyzed the pros and cons of the heartless path in the family, then moved on to the civilization itself. Elder Chiu was surprised as he had thought that Lu Yin did not like to talk. At the start, Elder Chiu would not have been able to keep up, but now he wanted more. Lu Yin finally pulled the timeline of their conversation to the Stonewall clan's ancestors' records, where Xianhuan had disappeared for 300 years. He wanted to learn more about that period of history from Elder Chiu. Next, he searched through the various family histories for records that focused on that period as well. However, because that period of time was relatively long ago, it was impossible to find out in a short time. In the blink of an eye, 10 years passed. During this time, Elder Chiu had taken Lu Yin to read through many family histories. Of course, he had not been reading them all the time. There was a time when Elder Chiu had an epiphany and went into seclusion for several years. Lu Yin did not force him and simply waited. Elder Chiu was very grateful to Lu Yin when he came out of seclusion, as he felt that he had taken another step towards becoming a 7% Red Spectre. Of course, from Lu Yin's point of view he was getting further and further away. The history of a family could help one grow, and history was a part of one's emotions. Elder Chiu's heartless path was getting weaker and weaker, but he did not notice it. The obvious proof was that he was becoming more and more talkative. It had been 20 years since the people from the Valley of Storms had left. During this time, some people had been tempted to join the Heartless sect, while others had tempted others to leave. Countless people had been watching them. One of the most active people had even created a faction specifically to oppose the Heartless path. At first there had only been 10,000 people in the Valley of Storms, but now there were 100,000. 100,000 cultivators had opposed the heartless path, which had infuriated Xianhuan greatly. The various large families had strictly forbidden their disciples from interacting with the heartless path. Even Luyin felt that it was strange. One person had actually dared to fool an entire civilization and change its cultivation attribute. Luyin had never thought that such a thing would happen. Of course, the prerequisite was that he had the backing of the Valley of Storms, and no one dared to act against him. If not for this, he would have died long ago. The faction that this person had created was called the Heartless Sect. In a few days, it would be the 20th anniversary of the Heartless Sect's establishment. At that time, the people from the Valley of Storms would gather at the Heartless Sect and cheer for it. They would also announce that they would expand their disciples by 1,000,000, which would shock countless people. Luyin had also heard of this, and he felt that it was absurd that one person could achieve such a feat. Furthermore, he did not rely on his strength but on his mouth. He decided to go and take a look. How ruthless. I heard that wherever this Heartless Sect goes, 3 out of 10 cultivators from the Heartless Path will leave. That's a rather exaggerated number. Elder Chio sighed and looked at Luyin. Of course that's not true. There are countless cultivators from the Red Shirt civilization, and a mere 100,000 is not enough to cause much of a stir. However, it's already quite impressive that this person could achieve such a feat. There are many talents under Mr. Lu. Lu Yin's expression was calm as he walked on the ground. Many cultivators around him were rushing towards the Heartless Sect. Some wanted to join while most wanted to see what the Heartless Sect was up to. This was because, in addition to the news about the Heartless Sect, there was also another piece of news that someone was going to attack the people from the Valley of Storms. The Heartless Sect's leader, Xianhuan, had forbidden anyone from attacking the people from the Valley of Storms. That bet had already spread throughout the Red Shirt civilization, but now that things had developed to this point, there were finally people who could not take it anymore. The bet only restricted the Heartless Sect and not the entire Red Shirt civilization. If someone really wanted to attack the people from the Valley of Storms, they would definitely not be from the Heartless Sect. Furthermore, there would definitely be an Eternal Realm cultivator behind them. Otherwise, who would dare to do such a thing? Not long after, Luyin and Elder Chio arrived at the Sea of Emotions. This was the Heartless Sect's encampment. The 100,000 cultivators were all smiling as they warmly invited all cultivators to enter. Their enthusiasm was very dazzling in the Red Shirt civilization, and many people were not used to it. Luyin and Elder Chio were also invited in. They stood on the surface of the sea and looked at the island. The island was shaped like a tower, and the person standing at the top was the acting leader of the Heartless Sect, Ming Chu. He was the one who had founded the Heartless Sect. The reason he was the acting leader was because the position of the leader had been left to Luyin. Chapter 4294. That was right. This was one of the reasons why others did not dare to attack the Passion Sect. The sect master was Luyin, a 70% red coat. Someone who dared to go against an Eternal Realm expert was from another human civilization. In the entire civilization, apart from the few Eternal Realm experts who dared to provoke Luyin. At least, it was unimaginable that Sherman, a 60% red coat, had broken his red umbrella so easily. Coupled with Xianhuan's strict orders to the Heartless Sect, the Passion Sect was unscrupulous. At this moment, Ming Chu stood on top of the sect and looked around. 100,000 cultivators looked at him excitedly and expectantly. There were more cultivators further away who wanted to join. Those cultivators were now looking at him emotionlessly, but soon Ming Chu knew that their gazes would change. In fact, he was very nervous now. Many things were out of his control. He did not know how the Passion Sect had expanded to this stage. He had only summarized a set of words to fool the cultivators of the Heartless Path with a few people. Then those people joined and formed the Passion Sect. He had thought of the Passion Sect, but he had not expected the impact to be so great. This congregation was not what he wanted to organize at all. Instead, the cultivators of the Heartless Path who had joined were fanatical, causing him to have no choice but to stand up. In particular, expanding the number of cultivators by 1,000,000 was nonsense. Those cultivators of the Heartless Path were too crazy. They had analyzed it. Perhaps the Heartless Path was too oppressive. Once those people broke through the restraints of the Heartless Path, they completely let themselves go. Many people could not see a future in the Heartless Path's cultivation, but they did not know what would happen to the Passion Path. They simply tried their best to fool them. The more people joined the Passion Sect, the more people were confused about their future. When others were confused, there would always be someone who would find the way forward. This was how Ming Chu and the others, who had come out of the Valley of Storms, interpreted the current development of the Passion sect. Lu Yin's thoughts were similar to theirs. How could he possibly fool so many people with just his mouth? No one was stupid. He glanced around and saw that all the cultivators who had joined the Passion sect were not very strong. They belonged to the category of people who had a bleak future in the Heartless Path and would be killed once they entered the Heartless Valley. However, they did not want to die. Now that the Passion sect had appeared and was backed by the Valley of Storms, it was equivalent to backing another human civilization. That was why they wanted to join, hoping to change their cultivation direction to change their lives. After all, they did not join because of the Passion or the Passion sect. It was because of them. This was where the benefits lay. Of course, some of them really cared about their family and did not want to continue being so heartless, but how many of them were there under the influence of the Red Coat civilization? The emotionless path's emotionlessness manifested in the emotionless valley, while the emotionless sect's emotionlessness manifested in benefits. Lu Yin clasped his hands behind his back and watched Ming Chu's excited speech. Him and the Passion sect's existence had only been a catalyst, but this catalyst had truly disgusted the Heartless sect, as well as the entire Red Shirt civilization. This was actually beneficial to Lu Yin, as at least the Passion sect had managed to gather the people of the Azure Way Valley and prevent them from being lured away by the Heartless sect. Among them there were some people who did not like Wu Qingdao. He was willing to take these people away just like Chu Songyun. However, the prerequisite was that he could take them away. Currently, among the group of people who came out of the Valley of Storms, more than 300 people had already been lured away by the Heartless sect. If he lured another 200 or so people, he would lose the bet. Ming Chu became more and more excited as he spoke. Who cares? At this point, the more people there were, the better. Looking at the million cultivators around him, it was a magnificent sight. He felt a sense of pride as though the sky was high and the sea was wide. However, the group of people from the Valley of Storms below was not as excited. They had heard the rumors over the past few days and were afraid that someone would attack them. If there really was someone, they would definitely be backed by an Eternal Realm cultivator. Could the Valley of Storms withstand that? Also, they could not suppress the addition of these cultivators. Their strength was much weaker than the cultivators who had joined them. Otherwise, why would they hold a congregation? It was not that they wanted to, but that they could not suppress these crazy cultivators from the Heartless sect. If only Mr. Lu was here. Just as Ming Chu was getting more and more excited and had forgotten his nervousness, a figure suddenly walked out of the void and looked down at Ming Chu and the million cultivators around him. His lips curled up into a disdainful smile. Ming Chu and the rest looked up and had a bad premonition. Lu Yin looked at the newcomer. He had already noticed that this person was hiding in the void. This person had the strength to cross the bitter adversity, which was not bad. Compared to Ming Chu and the others who had come out of the Valley of Storms and had only cultivated for 20 years, this person was no different from a god. He wanted to see what this person was going to do. Around the island, there was no such expert among the million cultivators. When the fanatical cultivators of the Heartless sect saw this person looking down on them, they were immediately angry and kept cursing. "Shut up," the newcomer shouted. His aura swept across the world and made it difficult for everyone to breathe. Ming Chu almost fell. As long as this person was willing, he could be easily turned into ashes. The people of the Valley of Storms of the Heartless sect were pale. The rumors were true. Someone was really going to attack them. Qiu Lao frowned. "Mr. Lu, what is this?" "Watch." Lu Yin was calm, but he was not doing nothing. At his fingertips, the karma spiral moved towards the newcomer. The newcomer sneered. "A group of ants trying to shake the sky. The Heartless sect? Ridiculous and an eyesore." Ming Chu was terrified. It was over. Someone did not care that Mr. Lu was going to attack them. There must be an Eternal Realm cultivator behind him. It was over. At this time, the karma spiral pierced through the newcomer. Lu Yin's eyes suddenly shrank. He instantly appeared beside the newcomer. Just as the newcomer was about to continue speaking, he did not have much experience of looking down on millions of cultivators. He wanted to let these people know what it meant to be strong. Suddenly, an indescribable chill appeared, making his scalp numb. He had not experienced this kind of life and death crisis for a long time. He slowly turned his head and saw Lu Yin. Ming Chu and everyone else also looked up and saw Lu Yin, who suddenly appeared. Qiu Lao was puzzled. Didn't he say to watch? Why did he suddenly attack? Lu Yin's face was cold. He stared at the newcomer and suddenly grabbed the man's neck. The newcomer was Du Ku, but he had no power to fight back against Lu Yin. Lu Yin grabbed him and disappeared. A gust of wind blew and everyone rubbed their eyes. Where was he? Was there something wrong with their eyes? Ming Chu stared blankly at the sky. Where did he go? The scene was silent and no one spoke. It was normal for one person to see wrongly, but it was impossible for everyone to see wrongly. Moreover, the pressure just now made many people feel cold. It was too real. Ming Chu, what are you doing? Continue. Mr. Lu is here. What are you afraid of? That's right. Tell us. Ming Chu was excited. Mr. Lu, it was indeed Mr. Lu. He shouted loudly, scaring countless people. Under everyone's gaze, he laughed and said, "Did you see that? This is the Passion Sect. That's right, you didn't see wrong. Our sect master is here." Sect master. Sect master. The 100,000 cultivators of the Passion Sect shouted excitedly, and more cultivators around wanted to join. Almost all of these people were independent cultivators. Those with family backgrounds would not come except to monitor. When had the independent cultivators ever experienced the feeling of being taken advantage of? At this moment they experienced it. Mr. Lu had directly carried away that powerhouse like a chicken. He was too powerful and invincible. If they wanted to join the Passion Sect, they had to rely on Mr. Lu. At this moment, Lu Yin's gaze was cold, and his killing intent skyrocketed. He had just used karma to see through this person and saw something. Dozens of people from the Valley of Storms had died at the same time, 2 days before the congregation. At that time, the rumors of someone attacking the Valley of Storms had not yet spread. In other words, this person had killed first and spread the news later. His purpose for coming to the Passion Sect's congregation was simple. He wanted to throw away the corpses of those from the Valley of Storms. If Lu Yin had not intervened, he would have done so. One could imagine the consequences if he had done so. No matter what Lu Yin did later, he would not be able to eliminate the impact of this matter. It would make many cultivators not dare to join the Passion Sect. This was a deterrence and also a provocation. Lu Yin did not even need to ask who was behind this person. He would directly take him to the Heartless Sect. Not only would he make the person behind this pay the price, but he would also let the entire Red Shirt civilization know that no one could touch his people. Deterrence? Then it would depend on who was more ruthless. On the other side, outside the civilization, a person looked at the universe with a smile. The show was about to begin. Did you really think that you could do whatever you wanted just because you came from another civilization? Without Jiuwen's protection, you were nothing. In the Heartless Sect, Lu Yin threw the cultivator who had crossed Ku Ai to the ground. At this moment, that person was already crippled. He would rather die than live, but it was not that easy to die. Many cultivators from the Heartless Sect saw this and were shocked. Someone recognized the person on the ground. He was an expert among the Red Shirts. A Red Shirt was considered quite powerful in the Red Shirt civilization. There were only a dozen people above that. Bai walked out and looked at the person on the ground. Seeing that he had been crippled, she raised her eyebrows and stared at Lu Yin. What do you mean? Lu Yin stepped over that person. Who is he? Bai said, he is a Red Shirt. Even if he offended you, you should not have been so heavy-handed. Do you know how important a Red Shirt is? The person on the ground was ashen. It was difficult for him to even speak. He did not have the power of the Passion Sect at all. He did not expect this. That person had clearly said that nothing would happen. He had eternal life behind him. How could Lu Yin dare to attack him? Moreover, Lu Yin had crippled him without asking him a single question. He did not even want to talk to him. He was a Red Shirt, and Lu Yin was not in the eternal life realm. How could he? However, his helplessness in front of Lu Yin made him realize that the difference was too great. However, Lu Yin was finished. With eternal life behind him, would he dare to seek revenge? Lu Yin said coldly, he killed people from the Valley of Storms. Bai Yu looked at the person on the ground. City Lord Wei, why did you kill people from the Valley of Storms? More than one. How many? Bai Yu asked. Lu Yin put his hands behind his back. Almost 100. Bai Yu was shocked. No wonder Lu Yin was so angry and went straight to the Heartless Sect. He did not go to the Heartless Sect to seek justice or anything. He wanted to establish his power. What could be better than finding the person behind the scenes in the Heartless Sect and then attacking? This meant that the Heartless Sect could not control him. Thinking of this, she looked at Lu Yin. I know what you want to do, but I have to remind you that City Lord Wei has eternal life behind him. Lu Yin was calm. Oh. Chapter 4295. You never asked? Bai Yu was surprised. Lu Yin looked at the person on the ground. No. Bai Yu frowned. How arrogant was this person? He dared to act without even asking. Wasn't he afraid that the person behind City Master Wei was someone he couldn't afford to offend? There were strong and weak immortal realms in the Redcoat civilization. Did this person really not care? There was another possibility. This person was angry and wanted to take revenge, but he didn't ask who was behind him. He didn't want to completely offend the person behind him. Bai said, "City Lord Wei, tell him who your master is." City Lord Wei gritted his teeth and looked up at Lu Yin. His eyes were filled with resentment. "My master is, and in order." Bai stared at Lu Yin. Next to him was the Eternal Realm. Previously this person had not clashed directly with Yixiao. Yixiao had said 3 times that he wanted to fight, but this person had not responded. If Sect Master Jianghu had not chased Yixiao away, this battle would have been unavoidable. He didn't have the confidence to fight Yixiao. Now he was also in the Eternal Life Realm. What kind of battle prowess did this person have? Sect leader said that I'm not a match for this person. Is that true? The people from the Heartless sect looked at Lu Yin as well, and some of them sneered. They also knew that Lu Yin hadn't agreed to a direct battle with Yixiao back then. Instead he relied on Sect Master Jianghu to force Yixiao to retreat. This person was not comparable to an Eternal Life Realm expert at all. He had failed to live up to the name of 7 points red coat. In comparison, xuanhuan, who had truly cultivated the emotionless Tao to 70% emotionless, should be 70% red. This person might not even be comparable to xuanhuan. If that was the case, then the reason why he didn't ask for the name of the person behind City Lord Wei was because he didn't want to offend him. Now that he knew it was time to retreat, Lu Yin got the name he wanted and turned around. Under everyone's shocked gazes, he stepped on the City Lord's back and directly crushed him to death. This scene caused Bayu's eyebrows to jump. She wouldn't rest until she was dead. Previously, Lu Yin did not know that Mayor Wei was a disciple of the Parallel Order. They thought that he was afraid of offending him, but now? Bayu exhaled. Did this person really not care who they were? The surrounding Heartless sect disciples were also stunned. They still dared to trample Governor Wei to death at this moment? This person was courting death. Lu Yin looked up, took a step forward, and vanished. Parallel Order? For the sake of cultivating the art of extreme agony, he had used his own family members as test subjects. It was almost morbid torture. He was an Eternal Realm cultivator that Lu Yin detested. There were 4 Eternal Life Realm experts guarding the Red Coat Square under the star. Except for one from the West Upper Peak, he could kill the other 3 without any hesitation. The parallel sequence was probably waiting for him. Lu Yin's gaze was cold. When she saw Lu Yin leave, Bayu knew that he had gone to look for the parallel sequence. She glanced at the Heartless sect. Jianghu slowly walked out. Let's go. Let's go take a look. You're not stopping him? Bayu was puzzled. He took a sip of wine and said, there are some things. It's about to change. After saying that, he walked in a certain direction. Bayu didn't know what Bai Jianghu was talking about, but she assumed that the commotion caused by the Valley of Storms group had caused Bai Jianghu to be dissatisfied. That was why he hadn't stopped the parallel sequence from taking action. He might even have wanted to use the parallel sequence to warn Lu Yin, but that didn't seem to be the case. Since she couldn't figure it out, she stopped thinking about it. She also walked in the direction where parallel sequence was guarding. The other members of the Heartless sect looked at each other. Soon, news spread that Lu Yin had gone to the Valley of Storms to confront parallel sequence. There might be a big battle. After all, Governor Wei had been trampled to death. Even if Lu Yin didn't take action, parallel sequence wouldn't let it go. When Lu Yin found parallel sequence, he already knew that Governor Wei had been trampled to death. His gaze was bone-chilling. He hadn't expected Lu Yin to be so ruthless as to trample Governor Wei to death. Governor Wei was his disciple, and he was very obedient. He was very fond of him, but he had been trampled to death. This was trampling on his dignity. This person couldn't be allowed to live. Were you the one who ordered the killing of my people? Lu Yin asked directly when he saw parallel sequence. His voice was unusually calm and emotionless. Parallel sequence's gaze was just as cold, but compared to Lu Yin's, there was an indescribable chill to it. His gaze was like a knife that could tear a person's body apart. Ordinary cultivators who had undergone bitter adversity wouldn't be able to withstand such a gaze. This was a gaze that parallel sequence had cultivated while cultivating extreme agony. You trampled little Wei to death. I'm asking if you were the one who ordered the killing of my people, Lu Yin repeated. At this time Jianghu and Bayu arrived. They didn't interrupt and just watched from afar. Parallel sequence suddenly laughed. His gaze didn't change, but his smile was frightening. Kid, I underestimated your courage. Then who gave you the courage to question me? Who gave you the courage to trample little Wei to death? And who gave you the courage to rebel against the heartless path? Lu Yin's expression was calm. It seems like you don't understand human language. Then I'll have to change my question. Parallel Sequence laughed loudly, his laughter traveling far and wide. It was ear-piercing. He turned to Jiuwen and Bayu. Did this kid tell you the location of the civilization behind him? Bayu glanced at Lu Yin. Not yet. Parallel Sequence nodded. Okay, I'll try my best not to kill him. Let him talk while he's still alive. Sect Master, you have no objections, right? Jiuwen took a sip of wine and didn't speak. Parallel Sequence sneered and looked at Lu Yin. Kid, you have two choices. First, kneel down and accept me as your master, replacing Little Wei, and disband the Azure Wave Valley. From now on, I'll be your master and you'll only follow my orders. Cultivate the Heartless Path and I can help you enter the Eternal Realm. Secondly, I'll leave you with only one mouth to speak. The rest will disappear. Choose one. Bayu couldn't help but say, Parallel Sequence, don't go too far. Lu Yin is a 7-red coat recognized by the Heartless sect. Parallel Sequence sneered. Since when did the Heartless Path care about favors? Bayu frowned. She wanted to say something but Lu Yin spoke from afar. Then I'll give you two choices. Parallel Sequence raised his eyebrows and looked at Lu Yin with interest. You're giving me choices? Lu Yin said calmly, first, kneel in front of the Azure Wave Valley and apologize. Then, enter my commander selection stage and I'll help you start over. Second, I'll completely destroy you and keep your skin to feel the evil in the world. Bayu looked at Lu Yin in a daze and then at Jiuwen. He was really not afraid of death. Was he so confident that he could fight against the Eternal Realm? Although she didn't want to admit it, Bayu knew that she was the weakest among the redcoats in the Eternal Realm. Jiuwen said that Lu Yin could defeat her, which meant that Lu Yin was a scoundrel. However, a scoundrel was not a real Eternal Realm, and it didn't mean that he could fight against any Eternal Realm. Parallel Sequence had achieved the Eternal Realm earlier than he Xiao her. Ha 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 ha. Parallel Sequence laughed. Interesting. I guessed that this would be interesting but I didn't expect it to be this interesting. Then he sneered. It seems that I should let you experience what extreme pain is. Then he raised his hand and pointed at Lu Yin. Tiny sword wills circled around his fingertips, and the vitality and eternal matter merged continuously. Kid, I'm a man of my words. Enjoy the last battle of your life. Lu Yin raised his eyebrows. Sword wills at his fingertips? Then he also raised his hand and pointed his index finger at Parallel Sequence. You should also prepare to enjoy the last battle of your life. Finger sword technique. Murderous intent flashed in Parallel Sequence's eyes. Arrogant. The two fingers faced each other and the sword wills collided. With a boom, countless sharp sword wills scattered in all directions. The vitality and eternal matter swept in all directions, shattering the void layer by layer. Bayu was shocked. The sword wills at Parallel Sequence's fingertips were very strong. He specialized in swordsmanship, and this finger seemed ordinary, but it contained his understanding of sword wills. Even she would find it difficult to withstand it, but Lu Yin did it? Parallel Sequence was also shocked. This kid could actually withstand his sword wills at his fingertips? Did he also specialize in swordsmanship? It seems that you have high attainments in swordsmanship. The more arrogant a person was, the more he would talk nonsense. Against such a person, destroying his dignity step by step was the greatest torture. Lu Yin slowly said, I didn't expect you to have some skills. Your attainments in swordsmanship are not bad. Parallel Sequence's gaze grew colder. You're asking for death. He stepped forward and his palm rose with his sword. Sword wills descended upon him. 8-direction sword technique. Lu Yin also faced sword with sword. His sword wills came from the sword sect, from the swordsman he had fought, from the understanding of swordsmanship that Wu Tian had given him, and from the accumulation of so many years. Although it had not been long, his swordsmanship was extremely strong. The development of swordsmanship in the Xuanhuan universe was flourishing. The spiritualized universe and the Ninth Heaven universe also had powerful swordsmanship. He combined the strengths of many swordsmanship and crossed the gap of time accumulation to fight an eternal realm swordsmanship expert head-on. He was not at a disadvantage. In terms of vitality and immortal matter, Lu Yin was not inferior to Parallel Sequence. Even if he could not win, his strength and physical body were enough to make up for it. However, Parallel Sequence had not reached the level where he could use his other strengths to make up for his swordsmanship. Jiuwen and Bayu watched from afar. The battle between the two of them became more and more intense. It was no longer limited to the periphery but also affected the universe. The constantly flickering swordsmanship and the shattered void attracted the attention of many experts from the Red Coat civilization. They all looked over and more people watched. The Eternal Realm experts in the other three directions also looked over. Xuanhuan and Xuanhuan looked up. They were very curious about Lu Yin's limit. Xiaman walked out of the city and stood on the flower petals to watch. Was Lu Yin fighting with parallel sequence? Others did not know, but she experienced the despair that Lu Yin brought. It could be said that before the battle with parallel sequence, she was the one who understood Lu Yin's strength the most besides Jianghu. That suffocating pressure and unsolvable power had surpassed her master. Bang bang bang, countless sword intents intertwined and collided. No matter how parallel sequence attacked, he could not break through Lu Yin's swordsmanship. Lu Yin's occasional counterattacks made parallel sequence wary. He did not expect Lu Yin to be able to keep up with the strength of his sword intent. Moreover, Lu Yin's vitality and immortal matter did not show any signs of weakening. Helpless, he held the red umbrella. With a light tap of his fingertips, the red sword let out a soft hum and slashed at Lu Yin. The red blade entered the umbrella's rib, heartless sorrow as a sword. This was the ruthless Tao that all the cultivators of the Red Coat civilization had entrusted to the red sword. In his hand, the sword intent was even stronger. Lu Yin retreated step by step. The red sword brought not only parallel sequence's sword intent but also the ruthless Tao. Parallel sequence was 80% Red Coat, and his ruthless Tao was 80% as well. He wanted to completely suppress Lu Yin in swordsmanship. The ruthless Tao was his strength. Lu Yin raised his hand and pointed. Behind him, streaks of triple firmament sword intent appeared and slashed at the red sword. It was still a battle of swordsmanship. Chapter 4296. From the finger sword technique to the true sword intent, it attracted the attention of countless people. This was swordsmanship, a battle of sword intents that had not appeared in the Red Coat civilization for many years. The red sword combined with the merciless path and parallel orders swordsmanship. It was almost the best swordsmanship in the Red Coat civilization. The triple blue sword intent was extremely strong and belonged to the combat skills of the Eternal Life Realm. At the level of the Eternal Life Realm, the triple blue sword intent was not weaker than any sword principle. The reason why the triple blue sword intent could not break through the enemy's defense for a long time was not because the triple blue sword intent was weak. The triple firmament sword intent was a battle technique that focused on the process and the outcome. It involved karma and was not weaker than any other swordsmanship. Bai watched. What powerful swordsmanship! Lu Yin's swordsmanship is not weaker than parallel orders. Jianghu looked at the triple firmament sword intent. Was it a swordsmanship that involved karma? It did not seem like something that this person could have created. Parallel Order realized that even if he used the red sword, it was difficult to break through the triple firmament sword intent. No matter how he attacked, the triple firmament sword intent could always block it. It seemed to be an inevitable result. Helpless, he opened the red umbrella. The 8 umbrella ribs shocked the merciless path cultivators. Countless people dreamed of cultivating to 80% merciless path. However, since ancient times, very few people had been able to cultivate to this level. They were all powerful people who could record history. The 8 umbrella ribs were bright red, and the red sword pierced them. Lu Yin did not wait. The triple firmament sword intent chased after Lu Yin and slashed at Parallel Order. Parallel Order looked up. This is a little tricky. No wonder you dare to challenge the Eternal Life Realm. But you do not know that there is a difference between the Eternal Life Realm and the Eternal Life Realm. With that, the red sword slashed out again. With a sound, several triple firmament sword intents were broken. The red sword slashed at Lu Yin. The merciless path gathered and strengthened the red sword. It was more than twice as strong as before. This was the true merciless path red sword. The combination of the merciless path and the red sword was the killer move. Parallel Order's gaze was cold. If he did not move, this sword would pierce through him. Lu Yin faced the red sword and waved his hand. The God-sealing catalog released a golden light that illuminated the dark stars. Then, triple firmament sword intent appeared and slashed at the red sword. Triple firmament sword intent. Hidden sword. Bai was shocked. She thought. But Lu Yin still did not move. Was he obsessed with swordsmanship? Or was it only the sword Tao? Others also thought of it and confirmed that it was the latter. Otherwise, how could a person who had not reached the Eternal Life Realm be able to fight with parallel to this step in sword principle? Streaks of triple blue sword intent slashed at the red sword. These streaks of triple blue sword intent were much stronger than the previous ones. The red sword could not even cut through them easily. Of course it could still cut through them, but it was not easy. Shirsue's face darkened. So that's how it is. The battle of swordsmanship just so happens to be in line with the direction of your cultivation. You should be a genius who completely cultivates swordsmanship, which is why you can compete with me. Luin smiled. Completely focused on the way of the sword? No, sword Dao was not his forte. Would you believe me if I said that I'm not good at swordsmanship? Tong Su sneered, as he obviously didn't believe Lu Yin's words. The others didn't believe him either, as scoundrel couldn't possibly be that strong. It was already rare for Lu Yin to be able to compete with Tong Su in terms of sword Dao, but they couldn't tell whose sword Dao was stronger. This was already the highest level of expectation they had for Lu Yin, and it couldn't possibly be higher. Xuanhuan had a strange look in his eyes. Not good at it? Then let me see what you're good at. Bang, 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 bang. The triple blue sword intent shattered, and the light of Tong Su's umbrella bones dimmed. On the other side, Lu Yin's eyes flashed, and streaks of triple blue sword intent appeared, finally floating in the sky. At this moment, countless people were stunned, and their mouths were wide open. So many swords. Tong Su's eyes narrowed. He had thought that Lu Yin had reached his limit. Of course, he had also reached his limit in terms of swordsmanship, so it could be considered a draw. But how could there be so many swords? Baiyu was shocked. How did he do it? Even Xuanhuan was shocked. There were so many swords. Lu Yin put his hands behind his back, and above his head, countless streaks of triple blue sword intent slashed at Tong Su's sword Dao River. The pressure brought by the sword Dao River shocked Tong Su. He had not expected Lu Yin to have such strength. Any one of the streaks of sword Dao River was enough to make an ordinary Eternal Realm cultivator wary. It was enough to fight against an Eternal Realm cultivator. How could there be so many here? However, he could not retreat. From the start of the battle until now, neither he nor Lu Yin had retreated. If they retreated now, even if they won in the end, it would be a disgrace. With the red sword in hand, Tong Su raised his arm again and pointed a finger. The sword Dao River that had descended suddenly scattered. It spread out in the void and extended infinitely, dispersing the entire sword Dao River. Lu Yin raised his eyebrows. Was this a gift? Baiyu said in a low voice. Tong Su probably did not expect to take the initiative to use a power outside of swordsmanship. This is equivalent to admitting defeat in terms of swordsmanship. In the universe, many cultivators also saw this scene and understood what it meant for Tong Su to withdraw the red sword. They had not expected Tong Su, who was recognized as the #1 swordsman in the red shirt civilization, to lose in terms of swordsmanship. The beauty pill licked her sexy lips. This Lu Yin was really strong. It was a pity that he would still die. Tong Su did not only have swordsmanship. Lu Yin controlled the sword Dao River to gather and slashed at Tong Su again. Parallel sequence pointed out with his finger again, and the long river of swords scattered again. It was difficult for it to gather again, and even if it did gather, it just happened to hit him. He didn't even take half a step back, allowing the long river of swords to pass by him. However, his clothes were torn. This was already a disgrace. Tong Su raised a hand and pointed at Lu Yin. At that moment, Lu Yin's forehead turned cold. He raised a hand and grabbed at Tong Su under everyone's incredulous gazes. He was courting death. Even Xuanhuan had not expected Lu Yin to be so rash. He had not even understood his opponent's abilities before directly grabbing at him. Lu Yin grabbed forward and clenched his fist. Tong Su sneered, but his smile quickly disappeared. How was this possible? Baiyu and the others were shocked as well. They stared at Lu Yin's hand. He was fine. In the distance, on the west peak, He Xiao and the beauty pill all stared at Lu Yin's hand. He was completely fine. How had he done it? Impossible. You. Tong Su could not believe it. Lu Yin relaxed his fingers and looked at his palm. He then looked at Tong Su. So that's how it is. Dispersing the void is your innate gift? He used extreme matter backfires, causing his hand to wither. He grabbed at Tong Su, who had felt the chill. Tong Su's attack was not ineffective, but it had been absorbed by extreme matter backfires. The attack's power was not enough to restore the withered hand, but it was still an invisible attack, which was not bad. Is that why my sword Dao River is dispersing? If that's the case, then your ability to conform to the laws of the universe should be close. Tong Su's eyes flickered, and his expression was extremely gloomy. Not only had Lu Yin seen through his power, but he had also withstood it. Lu Yin's nonchalant attitude made it seem as if he was challenging Lu Yin. Tong Su would not allow this to happen. I promised Sect Master Jianghu that I would spare your life, which is why I went easy on you. It looks like you didn't cherish that promise, so don't blame me when you die. Tong Su's arm drooped down and his fingers slowly moved. The void seemed to be torn apart in the direction his fingers were moving, and ripples spread out across the entire universe. Lu Yin felt a formless energy sweep past him. Was this an invisible world? Tong Su's gaze turned cold. Scatter. With that one word, Lu Yin's body suddenly withered, and his right cheek trembled as it recovered slightly. He raised a hand to touch it. Not bad. This scene completely overturned everyone's understanding. Even Jianghu put down his gourd and looked at Lu Yin deeply. He was completely fine. Bai was stunned. How was this possible? Yishao, Shishangfeng, Beauty Dan and the rest looked solemn. This was the first time they looked at Lu Yin so seriously. His body had withered. Was it a battle technique? Tong Su's power did not cause any harm to him. How did this person do it? Tong Su felt that this was absurd. It was impossible, absolutely impossible. He stared at Lu Yin. Scatter, 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 scatter. As he said the word scatter, Lu Yin's body kept trembling. It was as if the air was exploding. Every direction and every part of his body was exploding, but Lu Yin stood calmly in his original position and did not move. The area of the air explosion became wider and wider. The Eternal Life Realm experts understood it, but the rest did not. They could not see how powerful the air explosion was. It was only when the sound of the air explosion deviated from Lu Yin and shattered the void into pieces, forming a black crack. It was as if the earth had collapsed and the universe was affected. Only then did the rest understand how terrifying the power of the air explosion was. Xuanhuan slowly clenched his fist. He knew that he could not withstand the power of the air explosion. It was too terrifying. This was Mr. Lu's power. Above Flower City, Xiaman was shocked. She had heard her master say that Tong Su's invisible world was formed by the laws of the universe. It could tear all living things apart. Even her master was quite afraid of such an attack. It could even be said that he would not be able to walk out easily and would have to pay a price. This Mr. Lu was completely fine. Even his clothes were not wrinkled. How was this possible? Lu Yin smiled and patted his clothes. Actually, there was no need for things to move in the opposite direction, as he would have been able to withstand this attack. Besides, if he hadn't wanted to establish his dominance, then he wouldn't have needed to take the attack head-on and would have been able to easily dodge it. Tong Su's power was not comparable to Startle Gate Xianghu. Like Bai, he was about the same as Master Qudeng. This kind of power was no longer a threat to Lu Yin. Have you had enough fun? Lu Yin asked slowly as he looked at Tong Su playfully. Tong Su's face turned pale. Fun. Bai swallowed. Fun. Yishao and the rest stared at Lu Yin. Fun. An Eternal Life Realm expert with 8 red robes. The invisible world was actually fun? Jianghu laughed. This kid was ruthless. You can't do it. You're not an Eternal Life Realm expert. How could you block it? Tong Su completely lost his composure. He had been calm at the beginning, thinking that the game belonged to him. In the end, he realized that he was the one being manipulated. He could not accept it no matter what. How could someone who was not an Eternal Life Realm, or at most a scoundrel, do this? No, he must be an Eternal Life Realm expert. He was hiding it. He had deceived everyone. Jianghu also looked at Tong Su. Parallel Sequence stared at Jianghu, his eyes cracking. This person is clearly at the Eternal Life Realm. You guys worked together to deceive us, right? Jianghu shook his head and took a sip of wine. Bai scolded, he's not an Eternal Life Realm expert. Impossible. If he's not an Eternal Life Realm expert, how could he do this? Tell us, Tong Su shouted. Bai looked at Lu Yin with a complicated expression. Yes, they could not figure it out. If he was not an Eternal Life Realm expert, how could he do this? She could not give an explanation. No one could. She even suspected that Lu Yin was not an Eternal Life Realm expert. Lu Yin spoke again. Have you had enough fun? Is it my turn? Chapter 4297. Shui stared at Lu Yin. Do you really think that no one knows that you're hiding your immortal realm? You can't do it unless you're immortal. Speak. Why did you hide your cultivation level and come to the Red Coat civilization? Are you an enemy? The corners of Lu Yin's mouth curled up. Stupid. Shui sneered. You're the one who's stupid and exposed yourself. Lu Yin stopped talking nonsense. He took a step forward and appeared in front of Shui. He raised his hand and used the fingersword technique. Xuanhuan's pupils constricted. In front of him, the void scattered. He wanted to shake Luyin away, but Luyin was like a mountain. He allowed the void to scatter. His finger pierced through and pointed at the starry sky. His fingertip hit Xuanhuan. The part of the hit caved in, but it did not penetrate. Luyin was surprised. Xuanhuan sneered. You can block my attack and I can block yours. Do you really think that you can win against me by hiding your cultivation level? If I treat you as my equal, you won't have a chance. Luyin chuckled and pointed out once more. There was a bang. Xuanhuan's body was penetrated. Blood splattered across the starry sky. Xuanhuan was shocked. He looked down. In the distance, Xianxia narrowed his eyes. He had actually pierced through. He and Xuanhuan both cultivated the art of extreme pain. This method could allow them to achieve the path of ruthlessness in terms of their state of mind, and their physical bodies could be infinitely strengthened. It could be said that in the entire Red Coat immortal realm, other than the unfathomable hero ancestor and the unfathomable xuanhuan, no one else could compare to them in terms of physical defense. Only they knew this. This was also the reason why Xuanhuan was confident. He might not be able to win against Luyin, but he would definitely not lose. However, Luyin had once again exceeded their imagination. It was still that finger. That finger sword technique that was clearly in Xuanhuan's knowledge actually pierced through his body. Xianxia felt that it was impossible, let alone Xuanhuan. Luyin was breaking through their understanding again and again. Bang! There was another soft sound and blood splattered. Xuanhuan retreated. This was the first time he retreated. The physical defense that he was proud of, and thought that other immortal realms could not break, was actually collapsing. He could not stop Luyin at all. How many tricks was this person hiding? But was retreating useful? Luyin was faster than him. Even if he did not use teleportation, he was still faster. No matter how he retreated, Luyin would always appear beside him. The power of the finger sword technique Sword Dao alone was not enough to penetrate the parallel order. However, Luyin's forte lay in his strength. Even the Seven Treasures Heavenly Toad's eldest brother, who was compatible with two laws, could not compare to him in terms of strength. It could be said that Luyin's strength was the strongest among all the Eternal Life Realm experts he had ever seen, except for Patriarch Shan. As for Patriarch Shan, Luyin had never sparred with him before. He only knew that Patriarch Shan could not be defeated by brute force, but in terms of pure strength, it was still unknown who was stronger. A parallel sequence was no different from a child in front of Luyin's power. Following this, the red shirt civilization was thoroughly shaken. Luyin chased after Shingle, piercing through his body time and time again. He was not in a hurry to deal heavy blows, as he wanted to show the entire red shirt civilization that he was not someone they could provoke. The parallel order was forced to constantly flee, and he was unable to leave the universe. Every time he tried to escape, he would be blocked by Luyin, who would then force him towards the center of the civilization. Time after time, Luyin would pierce through the parallel order's body, causing blood to rain down from the sky and be seen by the countless cultivators of the red shirt civilization. They stared blankly, looking at the order like stray dogs. The parallel order was furious. He opened the red umbrella and used the limitless umbrella prison. The moment Shingle used the limitless umbrella prison, it meant that he had completely lost his dignity as an Eternal Life Realm expert. He had used the power of the civilization's inheritance to deal with Luyin, who was also a human. In the Red Shirt civilization there was an unwritten rule. The Eternal Life Realm experts could not use the red umbrella against the inside. This inside did not refer to the Red Shirt civilization. As cultivators of the Heartless Path, they could use the limitless umbrella prison to fight. This inside referred to the human civilization. This was a tacit understanding passed down from the Nine Bases era. Every civilization's inheritance power that reached the Eternal Life Realm was not allowed inside. At this moment, Shingle had broken this tacit understanding. He wanted to kill Luyin. He had to kill Luyin. This was the largest red umbrella Luyin had seen since he came to the Red Shirt civilization. When the red umbrella opened, the entire universe seemed to be enveloped. It spread out layer by layer, and a total of 8 red umbrellas enveloped the starry sky. Countless cultivators of the Red Shirt civilization heaved a sigh of relief. Not to mention Shingle himself, they could not accept the fact that an 8th-level Red Shirt Eternal Life Realm expert was being chased and beaten so miserably like a stray dog. This was not an insult to Shingle, it was an insult to the entire Red Shirt civilization. At this moment, when they saw the limitless umbrella prison bloom, they knew that Luyin was finished. Although Luyin had previously broken Sherman's limitless umbrella prison, that was not the same concept. This was the limitless umbrella prison released by an eternal life realm expert. It was 80% of the path of ruthlessness, and one had to be at least an eternal life realm expert to break it. This was what everyone knew. Even if Lu Yin had cultivated the path of ruthlessness, he would have to be at least 70% red spectre before he could be qualified to break it. This was under the premise that he had great strength, and 70% red spectre was equivalent to an eternal life realm expert. Looking at Lu Yin being enveloped by the limitless umbrella prison, they knew that this battle was over. Sherman exhaled. The limitless umbrella prison of Shingle was completely different from his own. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. He was finished. Chu Songyun looked at the limitless umbrella prison of Shingle and felt a little helpless. 8th level red shirt and 7th level red shirt only differed by 1 level, but this 1 level was the power of an entire realm. Furthermore, Shingle was an eternal life realm expert. It was impossible for Mr. Lu to break it. He could only hope that Mr. Lu would not die under the limitless umbrella prison. Sect Master Jianghu would not let him die, right? He Xiao retracted her gaze. It was over. Beauty Dan also retracted her gaze. She could foresee that Lu Yin would be turned into a pool of blood by the limitless umbrella prison. However, that old man Jianghu would probably make a move. He would not give up on a human civilization. West Upper Peak stared at Lu Yin. Would it end? He knew the physical strength of Shingle too well. This person could easily injure Shingle. His strength surpassed his own. Such strength should not be able to break through the limitless umbrella prison of Shingle. However, he felt that this person was too calm. Sect Master, what do we do now? Bayu asked, looking at Jianghu. Jianghu's expression did not change. He drank a mouthful of wine. What do you mean? Are we really going to let Lu Yin be killed by Shingle? Bayu asked. She did not care about Lu Yin's life, but she cared about the human civilization that she had yet to come into contact with. Jianghu looked into the distance at Lu Yin, who was enveloped by the limitless umbrella prison. Look at him. Are you afraid? Bayu looked over and frowned. He just hasn't seen the difference in strength. How can someone who is not in the eternal realm break through the power of my underworld red coat inheritance? It's impossible for him to break through it. I was already surprised when he broke through Sherman's limitless umbrella prison. I was certain that he was a rogue. However, he is facing Shingle now. It's good enough that he is not dead. Jianghu did not refute. He looked on with interest. Was it over? This was not the expression of someone who was about to be killed. Insect Master. Bayu, do you think Lu Yin is stupid or smart? Bayu did not understand. I don't think so. Jianghu smiled and said, a person who is not stupid has been in my red coat under the stars for so many years and has even fought with the limitless umbrella prison. Do you think he should give the parallel order a chance to use the limitless umbrella prison when he has the advantage? Bayu thought about it. Maybe he can't stop Shingle from using the limitless umbrella prison. Jianghu took a sip of wine. He is waiting for the limitless umbrella prison. In the starry sky, Shingle was panting heavily. His body was bleeding everywhere. His blood burned the void because the earth could not bear it. To the universe, the flesh and blood of an eternal realm was poison. He stared at Lu Yin. He did not expect Lu Yin to force him out of the limitless umbrella prison. However, it did not matter. This guy was going to die. You seem very confident. Lu Yin looked calm as he looked at Shingle. Shingle's eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. He did not want to speak. At this moment, anything he said would be useless. He had been forced out of the limitless umbrella prison. What he needed to do now was to kill this person and erase his existence. That was enough. The 8 umbrella ribs of the limitless umbrella prison seemed to be burning. They spread across the entire starry sky and covered Lu Yin. Let's see how long you can last. Lu Yin looked up. It was indeed an inherited battle technique. This limitless umbrella prison was used by an eternal realm. It felt like a powerful battle technique that could decide the outcome of a battle. The red coats under the stars and the black enlightenment were both fishing civilizations. During the peak of the human era, there were 9 bases. If each base had this inherited power and each base was as strong as the red coats under the stars, he could not imagine how the 9 bases had been destroyed. Even to a fishing civilization, the 9 bases was a colossal existence. Lu Yin did not attempt to break the limitless umbrella prison. Instead, he waited. At this moment, the surface of his body was dry. He was waiting for things to reach their limits. Sometimes one attack was enough. Lu Yin was waiting, and so was Shingle, waiting for him to be melted. Outside, everyone was waiting. They were sure that Lu Yin could not escape. Now it was up to the Heartless sect to see if they would help Lu Yin or allow him to be killed. Xuanhuan could not sit still. He found Xuanhuan and Baiyu. Sect Master Mr. Lu cannot die. He represents another human civilization. The two ignored him. Under the starry sky, those from the Azure Valley were too weak to see. However, those who had joined the Passion sect were experts. Seeing Lu Yin trapped in the limitless umbrella prison, all of them despaired. Before this, Lu Yin's pursuit had become the darkest moment that the Red Coat civilization under the stars had never experienced before. A dignified 8th-ranked Red Coat immortal had been pursued to such an extent by a non-immortal from the human civilization. This had made the people of the Passion sect cheer. Now their darkest moment had arrived. Once Lu Yin died, the Passion sect would be gone. Throughout the civilization, countless cultivators looked at the starry sky with different thoughts, waiting for the final result. In the limitless umbrella prison, Lu Yin suddenly looked at Xuanhuan and Baiyu. If I die, how do you plan to find the human civilization behind me? Baiyu thought that Lu Yin was asking for help and said coldly, if you knew this would happen, why did you act so rashly? Lu Yin did not look at her. He just stared at Xuanhuan. He wanted to see something in Xuanhuan's eyes. However, this old man just took a sip of wine and smiled at him. I'm old. My back hurts. Let's end this quickly. Shingle looked back. He also wanted to end this quickly, but this guy was quite difficult to deal with. 8th-ranked Heartless was not enough to melt him easily. What are you looking at? I didn't tell you. Xuanhuan glanced at Shingle with disdain. Shingle's eyes were cold. Didn't tell him? Then. Hey, look at this. Lu Yin's voice sounded. Shingle looked over. Chapter 4298. Lu Yin raised his hand, and the finger sword technique circled around him. Xianxia sneered. You still want to break through the Sunluo umbrella prison? Lu Yin shook his head. I'm just reminding you to watch. True despair. As soon as he finished speaking, the finger sword technique shuttled through his palm. Lu Yin's palm continuously withered and recovered. The merciless path burned too slowly. He needed to accumulate his own strength. Xianxia narrowed his eyes. Lu Yin's attitude and Xuanhuan's attitude were both wrong. This person was too calm and collected. Did he really want to break through the Sunluo umbrella prison? Impossible. Even He Xiao and the others, who were also cultivators of the merciless path, would find it difficult to break through once they were trapped. It could even be said that it would be difficult for Xuanhuan to break through the Sunluo umbrella prison. What did this person have? Stop pretending. I won't let you go. It's useless no matter how much you pretend. Xianxia snorted coldly. This person must be acting together with Xuanhuan to scare him into stopping. How laughable. When had a cultivator of the merciless path ever been scared? Baiyu looked at Xuanhuan and asked, what's going on? Within the Sunluo umbrella prison, Lu Yin's lips curled up. Things had reached their limits. He raised his hand and waved it towards the starry sky. It was very relaxed. It was as if he was stretching and greeting someone. With a wave of his arm, the sky opened. The Sunluo umbrella prison split into two. In Xianxia's hand, the umbrella bones broke inch by inch. The formless impact caused him to retreat step by step. He spat out a mouthful of blood. His sneer turned to shock and then to horror. He looked ahead as if he was looking at a monster. The entire red-shirt civilization was silent at this moment. No one spoke. Everyone stared blankly at the sky. This scene was enough to be recorded in the annals of history. They saw the Sunluo umbrella prison split into two. They saw the dark and deep starry sky appear before their eyes again. They saw Xianxia's incredulous expression. They also saw the person standing in the void with a smile on his face. He was so confident, carefree and calm. His gaze was so calm that it was as if he had just woken up. At this moment, everyone realized that in his eyes, Xianxia had never cared about him. He stood up like a giant. Xianxia spat out a mouthful of blood again. His entire body trembled. His arm and chest had been pierced by the umbrella bones. He was in a much worse state than Sherman. He stared blankly at Lu Yin, who was not even looking at him. Was this guy a monster? Baiyu was stupefied. In the other directions, He Xiao, West Upper Peak and Beauty's Pill were all stupefied. No one could ignore this moment. They were witnessing history, witnessing what it meant to be powerful and unmatched. A single person had broken through the eternal realm limitless umbrella prison. This shouldn't have happened. Even Xuanhuan's expression froze. He knew that Lu Yin could break through the myriad parasol prison, but he had not expected it to be so easy. It was as if the myriad parasol prison was just an ordinary paper umbrella. He was looking down on the red coat civilization. In outer space, Lu Yin retracted his hand, twisted his wrist, and casually said, "A very powerful battle technique. Not bad." His mind buzzed, unable to accept it at all. Lu Yin looked up and stared at the parallel sequence. He took a step forward and appeared in front of the parallel sequence. At this moment, the parallel order didn't have any intention of resisting. Lu Yin reached out to grab the parallel order's neck, but suddenly, the void beside them distorted as a figure appeared and reached out to grab Lu Yin. Lu Yin allowed the newcomer to grab his arm as he grabbed the parallel sequence's neck and lifted him up. "Let go." The newcomer shouted and suddenly let go. Then he punched the back of his hand in the opposite direction. This punch caused space-time to stop and gray to flow. Time slowed down and even flowed backward. Fist seals fused together and finally converged on Lu Yin's arm. Lu Yin's arm was withered, but it had completely recovered after receiving this punch. What a domineering punch, and there were faint fist marks on the back of his arm. Even though the newcomer's punch was fierce, it still couldn't suppress Lu Yin. Lu Yin's gaze turned and looked at the newcomer. The newcomer also stared at Lu Yin with a solemn expression. Although his killing intent was restrained, it could still be seen. That bone-chilling and domineering killing intent was penetrating. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth as he hoarsely said, "Senior, save me. I'm Jianghu, a red coat." The newcomer spoke slowly. His voice was dull and his appearance was thin, but he gave off a sense of refinement. Lu Yin and Jianghu looked at each other. "You want to save me?" "Save you?" Lu Yin raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Jianghu replied coldly, "Jianghu is the heroic ancestor's disciple." Lu Yin's expression changed. He didn't know about this and no one had told him about it. He turned to Xuanhuan and asked. Xuanhuan put down his wine gourd and nodded. "That's right." Lu Yin looked at Jianghu again. At this moment, Jianghu's fist was still pressing down on his arm. Lu Yin slowly released his hand and allowed Jianghu to fall to the ground while coughing up blood. Jianghu retracted his hand and looked at Jianghu. "Go back and heal." Jianghu looked up and glanced at Jianghu before looking at Lu Yin again. His eyes were filled with hatred. Lu Yin frowned. This gaze was not good, and he would never let go of anyone who looked at him with such a gaze. However, this was a red coat civilization, and Jianghu was the heroic ancestor's disciple. This was troublesome. Xuanhuan's strength was unfathomable, and the heroic ancestor was publicly recognized as the strongest red coat under the astral stars. He was 120% emotionless and had at least 2 laws of the universe. Even the 7 treasures Heavenly Toad's boss might not be able to defeat him. Even if Lu Yin could escape after killing his disciple, he wouldn't be able to communicate with a red coat under the astral stars in the future. However, this person deserved to die. "Why aren't you leaving?" Jianghu growled. Jianghu gritted his teeth, glared at Lu Yin and was about to leave. Lu Yin abruptly raised his leg and kicked out, smashing into the universe. No one had expected him to do this and Jianghu fell to the ground like trash. Half of his body was broken. Jianghu glared at Lu Yin angrily. "You?" Lu Yin shrugged. "I saw that he was injured so I helped him." Jianghu's gaze flickered and it was extremely cold. In the distance, Bayu stared at Lu Yin. This guy knew that Jianghu was the heroic ancestor's disciple, but he still dared to kick him. Xuanhuan put away his wine gourd and stepped forward. "Why did you come out, Jianghu?" Jianghu stared at Lu Yin and answered coldly, "If I didn't come out, this person would have turned the world upside down." Lu Yin raised a brow and looked at Jianghu. "Are you talking about me? Don't be so angry. We were just sparring." Xuanhuan waved his hand. Lu Yin looked at Xuanhuan. "I really wanted to kill that guy but he's the heroic ancestor's disciple so I had to give him some face." Jianghu's tone was cold. "Why do you want to kill him?" Lu Yin glanced at Jianghu coldly. This person said that he wanted to save him but in reality he wanted to save Jianghu. The murderous intent in this person's eyes was very strong, and it could not be suppressed. "He ordered someone to kill my disciple." "You're from the Valley of Storms so you deserve to die," Jianghu said. Lu Yin stared at Jianghu. "It seems like you want to do it too. Let me ask you something first. Are you the heroic ancestor's disciple?" Xuanhuan coughed. "He is too." Lu Yin understood. "No wonder you saved Jianghu. You're from the same sect." "2 Eternals in 1 sect. The heroic ancestor is amazing." Jianghu sneered. "Not only that, but Beauty Dan and West Upper Peak are also the heroic ancestor's disciples. He Xiao is the heroic ancestor's registered disciple." Lu Yin's expression changed slightly. This was incredible. It was possible for a powerful Eternal Life Realm to teach Eternal Life Realm powerhouses, but to teach several Eternal Life Realm powerhouses, this person must be a powerful figure. He looked at Xianhuan and asked, "You're not the heroic ancestor's disciple, right?" Xianhuan shook his head. "I'm not, but Bayu's breakthrough was due to the heroic ancestor's guidance, so she should be considered half a registered disciple." Lu Yin's expression was heavy. This heroic ancestor might be more terrifying than he imagined. Sect Master Xianhuan, the people from the Valley of Storms are misleading the public and causing trouble for the ruthless path. What should be done? Jihe questioned. Xianhuan said, "This is my bet with Mr. Lu." Jihe said in a low voice, "You hurt a cultivator of the ruthless path and damaged the foundation of the Red Coat civilization under the stars for a mere bet. What's the point of such a bet? Also, I heard that your bet is for the human civilization behind this person. What a joke. Since there's a human civilization, of course you should say it. Why do you need to bet?" After he finished speaking, he stared at Lu Yin. "You should know how difficult it is for a civilization to survive in a space of inches. For your own selfishness, you put the human civilization in danger. How should you be punished?" Lu Yin blinked. He was stunned. He was guilty? He always thought that he was good at talking, but this Jihe was even more ruthless. He was convicted before he could even speak. "What, you have nothing to say? Then tell me the coordinates of your human civilization. The Red Coat people under the stars will help you cultivate. A civilization should have at least 2 or 3 Eternal Realm experts. Only by joining forces with us can you protect yourself. Otherwise, your civilization will be destroyed at any time. You will be a sinner for all eternity," Jihe said sternly. Lu Yin was speechless. "Our civilization is living well." It will be better in the future," Jihe said coldly. Lu Yin looked at Xianhuan and asked, "Doesn't the heroic ancestor pick disciples? They are either idiots or idiots." Impudent. Jihe was furious and wanted to attack, but Xianhuan stopped him. He sighed. "I am now the sect master of the ruthless sect. Before the heroic ancestor went into seclusion, he handed the Red Coat civilization under the stars to me. I have my own decision on this matter. Jihe, just do your job." Jihe narrowed his eyes and stared at Xianhuan. "Are you really going to side with this outsider? We are all humans. What's there to be biased about?" Lu Yin retorted. Xianhuan looked at Jihe. "Since the bet is made, we should act according to it. Do you want me to break my promise? Besides, are you sure you can suppress him?" Jihe was apprehensive. Lu Yin had just split the limitless parasol prison into 2, which was a frightening display of strength. He shouldn't be a scoundrel, but rather a hidden Eternal Realm cultivator. If he could escape their detection, then he was quite powerful. Although he was afraid, this was the Red Coat civilization under the stars. He was disdainful. He is just an inferior person. Lu Yin's gaze turned cold as he stared at Jihe. "Inferior?" Jihe said, "The 9th base was destroyed long ago. If I'm not wrong, the human civilization behind you was once abandoned as bait. The fact that we abandoned you back then proves how big the gap between you and us is. If you are not inferior, then what are you?" Lu Yin stared at Jihe in a daze and smiled. "I see. That's how you see us." Jihe put his hands behind his back and did not care. It was unexpected that you could survive. Suddenly, he thought of something and stared at Lu Yin. "Logically speaking, the 9th base has been destroyed, so you shouldn't have survived. But you did, and you even have an inheritance that knows about the 9th base. You must have fled." Chapter 4299. Lu Yin looked at Jihe coldly. Jihe mocked, "No wonder a mere bait could survive and even have an inheritance. You are not only inferior people but also despicable." He stared at Lu Yin. "If you didn't escape back then, you would have led the enemy away. The 9th base civilization might not have been destroyed. It's hateful that you inferior people actually escaped. Xianhuan, what's the point of gambling with these inferior people? Capture him and force him to tell us the coordinates. Capture all the human civilizations on his side. There must be cultivators suitable for the ruthless path among them. Although they can't be treated the same as the cultivators of the Red Coat civilization, it's still better than doing nothing. It's good for our people to practice." Bayu looked at Jihe and then at Lu Yin. Was he really bait to escape? This was indeed reasonable. Otherwise, if the 9th base civilization was destroyed, how could a mere bait survive and have an inheritance? Xianhuan said, "Let's not bother about what happened a long time ago. No matter what happened in the past, human civilizations should unite now. As he spoke, he looked at Luin. Jihe's words are unpleasant, but humans should indeed unite. What do you think, Mr. Lu? Luin faced Xianhuan and asked. How interesting. He made it sound like they owed the Red Coat civilization. The bet isn't over yet. He did not forget the first time he met Xianhuan. Xianhuan did not feel guilty or acknowledge their civilization being used as bait. He even treated this as a process and promised to compensate them. That indifferent attitude was very similar to Jihe's. Both cultivated the ruthless path. There was no difference between them. Xianhuan was calm. Jihe frowned and said coldly, "There's no bet. Either tell me the coordinates or—" His eyes were filled with killing intent. "I'll force you to tell me the coordinates." Luin smiled. "Sure, try and force me." Jihe clenched his fists. His killing intent was boiling, but he was also extremely afraid. This person was very strong. Even he could not easily tear apart the parallel limitless umbrella prison. Bayu looked at Jihe. She did not attack immediately, which meant that Mr. Lu's strength made Jihe lose confidence. Anyone who knew Jihe knew that if he was confident he would have attacked long ago. He would not care about Xianhuan at all. Because he was the disciple of the hero ancestor, the other eternal realms would only help him. But now that he did not attack, it was enough to see his fear. Enough, Jihe. No matter what you want to do. We'll talk about it after the bet. Xianhuan's tone changed. Just like how he forced the to retreat, he was serious now. Jihe was already wary of Luin, and when he saw Xianhuan's attitude, he took advantage of the situation and retreated. All right, since Sect Master insists on fulfilling the terms of the bet, I will not interfere. However, if you lose the bet, Sect Master will have to pay the price. I will report this matter to my master. After Jihe left, Bayu let out a sigh of relief. This matter had finally come to an end. He didn't expect things to turn out like this. Even Jihe had come out. Wait, perhaps Jihe was the one behind the parallel sequence. Not only had Bayu noticed this, but Luin had as well. Back then, Xianhuan had brought him to meet many Eternal Realm cultivators, but he had not met Jihe. That was because Jihe had been in seclusion. How could it be such a coincidence that he came out at this time and knew everything about him like the back of his hand? The parallel order was just his saber. However, Luin also wanted to break this blade. There are still 80 years left. You're going to lose this bet. Jiuqiu asked and looked at Luin. My emotionless sect has roped in a bunch of people and a bunch of them have died. We just need to rope in another 1,000 or so people. Luin was confident. You won't be able to rope in these 1,000 people. Xianhuan laughed. Even if more than half of them die, you'll still lose. Luin's eyes flashed. You know that the people from the Valley of Storms were killed. Xianhuan took out his wine gourd. The bet only stipulated that the people from the emotionless sect could not attack. I did not instruct the parallel order. This matter has nothing to do with me. You just don't want to help, Luin said. Xianhuan smiled. That's your problem. Luin looked at Xianhuan deeply and asked, Jihe will still attack the people from the Valley of Storms, right? That's for sure, Bayu interrupted. Luin understood and also thought of what to do. If Jihe really wanted to attack me just now, what would the result be? Bayu looked at Luin in surprise. What did he mean? Xianhuan took a sip of wine. You will face a war between civilizations. Luin nodded and left. Bayu said, Sect Master, Jihe will not let him go. However, it seems that it will be difficult for Jihe to deal with him alone. Xianhuan sighed. Young people are getting more and more powerful. Old people like us should have been eliminated long ago. With that, he staggered towards the starry sky. The end of the battle had a huge impact. Luin had defeated the parallel order, and it was not a simple defeat. It could be considered a crushing defeat. Countless people in the red coat under the stars had a new understanding of Lu Yin's strength. Whether it was the parallel order's swordsmanship or tearing apart the limitless umbrella prison, it was unbelievable. The result was that no one dared to provoke the people from the Valley of Storms. After the prelude, the person who led the killing of the people from the Valley of Storms ended up in such a miserable state. Naturally, no one else dared to do anything to the people from the Valley of Storms, unless they had an eternal life realm backing them. Moreover, they had to be stronger than the parallel order. The people from the Valley of Storms heaved a sigh of relief. They thought that they could rest easy. Who would dare to take the risk of being killed by Mr. Lu? However, they were soon notified to return to the Valley of Storms. Everyone thought that this was the metamorphosis of the Valley of Storms, and also the metamorphosis of the sentient sect. As a result, the sentient sect had gained hundreds of thousands of disciples overnight. If they could really achieve the 1 million cultivators that were rumored before the congregation, however, this group of people was directly sent to the Heartless sect by Lu Yin. Countless people were dumbfounded. Lu Yin's idea was simple. Xuanhuan had made it clear that the disciples of the Valley of Storms would definitely be targeted or even killed. This was much more efficient than luring them to join the path of heartlessness. If that was the case, Lu Yin could do nothing even if he had the path sword. The path sword could not revive the dead. The only way was to send everyone from the Valley of Storms to the Heartless sect. No one would dare to do anything to them in the Heartless sect. They just had to stay there for the remaining 80 years. Ba Yu looked at Lu Yin strangely. Are you sure you want to keep them in the Heartless sect? Otherwise, where would it be safer than the Heartless sect? Lu Yin asked. Ba Yu said, this is the Heartless sect. They cultivate the path of heartlessness. No matter how determined the people from the Valley of Storms are, if they come here they will change in 10 years, let alone 80 years. Of course Lu Yin understood this. Actually, many disciples from the Valley of Storms were not lured in at the beginning. Later they were tricked into the Heartless sect and switched to cultivating the path of heartlessness after a few years. This was the influence of the environment. Here, one would be instilled with the path of heartlessness even in their dreams. It was impossible to persist. There's no other way. Jihe, that old bastard, will definitely think of a way to kill the people from the Valley of Storms. Ba Yu said, then why don't you gather them in the Valley of Storms and protect them? Lu Yin sighed. Doing that would lose the meaning of the bet. Do you think I can withstand the pressure of the entire Red Coat civilization alone? No matter how strong I am, I can't do it. I can only use the bet to shut up the Red Coat civilization. If I really lose this bet, it means that the path of heartlessness is the way out for everyone. He looked at Ba Yu. My goal is not to reject the path of heartlessness for no reason. I just think that it is not suitable for everyone. Ba Yu looked deeply at Lu Yin. She understood. The bet was small but the attempt was big. The real goal of this bet was not to completely separate the human civilization behind this person from the Red Coat civilization. On the contrary, it was to find a way to interact with each other. The way she looked at Lu Yin changed. This person was worthy of respect. Lu Yin left and Ba Yu really believed him. No matter how long those people stayed in the Heartless sect, he had already planted the path sword. Planting the path sword for these people who had only cultivated for 20 years consumed very little karma. Once the bet time was up, the path sword would be activated, causing the Red Coat civilization to completely cut off contact with the three universes and spread the path of heartlessness. This was the most ideal situation, but would the Red Coat civilization really abide by the bet? At the very least, Jihe would not admit to it. Xuanhuan could not represent the entire Red Coat civilization, and would Xuanhuan really abide by the bet? These words could fool Ba Yu, but they could not fool Xuanhuan. However, the bet of 100 years was just Lu Yin buying time. He wanted to see the Red Coat civilization clearly within these 100 years and see the relationship between Xuanhuan and the Blue Lotus ruler. No one knew that Xuanhuan had already recognized the three universes. After returning to the Valley of Storms, Lu Yin slowly sat down. Please sit. A figure appeared across from him and slowly sat down. This person was Jihe. When Lu Yin had brought the people from the Valley of Storms to the Heartless sect, Jihe had been there. That was why he had returned to the Valley of Storms, where Jihe had been waiting for him. Smart, but it's just a waste of time. Your people can't withstand the baptism of the path of heartlessness. That's the Heartless sect, Jihe said, his voice low and filled with mockery. Lu Yin looked at him. There's no other way. Someone is breaking the rules. Here the rules will not stand on my side. Jihe looked at Lu Yin. It's good that you know. Some words are unpleasant, but they are the truth. Do you like unpleasant truths or pleasant hypocrisy? I like both. Oh. Lu Yin said calmly, when I'm in a good mood, I want to hear pleasant hypocrisy to make me feel better. When I'm in a bad mood, I want to hear unpleasant truths. He then stared at Jihe. Then I'll find someone to vent it on. Jihe laughed. You have a deep enmity against me. The people of the Valley of Storms cannot die in vain. This has nothing to do with me. It was that idiot, the Parallel Order, who did it. Just him? Lu Yin stared at Jihe. Jihe nodded seriously. Just him. Lu Yin looked at him for a while and looked away. Why are you looking for me? Jihe said, you're a smart person. You'll definitely lose the bet. You can never win here, so the human civilization behind you will eventually cross paths with ours. You don't want the civilization behind you to be baptized by the path of heartlessness. You can make some preparations. Lu Yin was stunned. He looked at Jihe. You want to help me? Jihe said, I told you the first time we met. I'm saving you. Lu Yin found it funny. What? Let me go to your civilization. You want to control our civilization? Lu Yin's eyes were sharp. Jihe saw Lu Yin's reaction and knew that the civilization behind this person was not strong. They did not believe that there was only one eternal life realm, but Lu Yin's reaction proved that even if there was more than one eternal life realm, they would not be that strong. Chapter 4300. On a deeper level, it was even possible that this person was the strongest person in the human civilization that he came from. This was not only Jihe's guess but also the guess of countless people in the Red Coat civilization. Everyone thought that Lu Yin was hiding his eternal life realm cultivation. In fact, he was in the eternal life realm. They could not accept someone who was not in the eternal life realm. Jihe said, I don't have such plans. I just want to avoid cultivating in the Heartless Tao and break through Jiuwen's seal. What do you mean? Jihe stood up and looked in the direction of the distant Heartless sect. The Heartless sect was founded by Jiuwen. They spread the Heartless Tao and built many Heartless valleys. On the surface, it looks like his goal is to make the Red Coat civilization stronger, but in reality he's cultivating his own path of heartlessness. Currently, the Red Coat civilization is surrounded by his heartless path. If we cultivate here, we will never be able to surpass him. Only by leaving this place and heading to a new human civilization, breaking free from the seal of the heartless path, will we be able to surpass him. He turned around and looked at Lu Yin. Don't think that Jiuwen is really helping you. He made a bet with you, and he doesn't care if the human civilization behind you has come into contact with us. Whether he wins or loses, it doesn't matter to him. He is the most hypocritical of all. Lu Yin's eyes flickered. Does Jiuwen's Heartless Tao include the entire Red Coat civilization under the stars? What about the heroic ancestor? Back then, when he first met Jiuwen said that they were forced to practice the Heartless Path. However, in the mouth of the Ji River, but Jiuwen is the main culprit behind the spread of the Heartless Path by the Red Coat civilization under the stars? Jihe shook his head and sighed. Master has already mastered 120% of the Heartless Path. He doesn't care about the matters of the mortal world. The goal of Jiuwen is to master 120% of the Heartless Path, and this is also what Master wants him to do. Master is selfless. If one more person can master 120% of the Heartless Path, our Red Coat civilization will become stronger. 2 Heartless Path experts are enough to deter most fishing civilizations from invading. But Master has never thought about us. All of us have fulfilled the drunken question. Why should I be able to obtain 120% of the Heartless Tao, as long as I can walk out of the drunken question seal? His eyes burned with passion as he stared at Lu Yin. Mr. Lu, helping me is the same as helping you. Let's work together, and if you help me break through Jiu Yi's Heartless Tao, I can promise you that once I surpass Jiu Yi, the human civilization behind you will be free. It's up to you. The Red Coat civilization under the stars will not interfere with the choice of your civilization. If you don't cooperate with me, you will lose the bet, and the civilization behind you will have to come into contact with the Red Spectres under the stars. Jiuwen doesn't mind expanding the range of his Heartless Tao. He doesn't mind, but can you bear it? The cultivation of the emotionless Tao is cruel and inhumane. None of you can accept it. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. He knew where the 3 universes were, but he hadn't made a move yet. Was it because he didn't care? The Heartless Path could encompass the entire Red Coat civilization. It could expand, but it could also not expand. Was that so? According to Jihe, if the 3 universes were discovered, it would mean that many people would be able to break through Jiuwen's Heartless Tao's blockade before the range of his Heartless Tao encompassed the 3 universes. This was disadvantageous to Jiuwen. According to what you said, Wine Question should have lost the bet. You're wrong. He doesn't care about winning or losing, but if he learns about the existence of the civilization behind you, he might not necessarily tell everyone. There were some things that didn't matter to him. He could choose not to use them or not to have them, but he couldn't allow others to use them. I can tell the entire Red Shirt civilization the coordinates, Lu Yin said. Jihe laughed mockingly. You won't do that. Lu Yin frowned. What? I've thought about it from the start. If I lose the bet, I'll tell the entire Red Coat civilization the coordinates of my civilization. Jihe shook his head. Trust me, you won't do that. When the time comes, Wine Question will let you know why. Of course, I can also let you know in advance. Jihe's expression was gloomy, and his eyes were smiling. Go check on Wine Question's disciple and you'll know the answer. The Stonewall tribe? No, another disciple of his. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. Jihe left, but before he left, he asked Lu Yin to think about it carefully. He needed an answer the next time they met. He also asked Lu Yin to think about Jianghu and the others' attitudes towards wine question. Lu Yin sat in the Valley of Storms and recalled Jihe's words. Wine question and Jihe had said two completely different things. One had said that they were forced to cultivate the path of heartlessness, and while it was heartless, there was a distinction between right and wrong. They had also promised to abide by the terms of the bet. While they were heartless and allowed the people of the Valley of Storms to be killed, they were at least honorable. Another had said that wine question had created the path of heartlessness and was the person who had set up the path of heartlessness for the Red Shirt civilization. He wanted to use the entire Red Shirt civilization to cultivate the path of heartlessness as the price to reach 120%. He was an extremely hypocritical person. If Lu Yin wanted to know the answer, he could use karma to see. However, neither of them were existences that Lu Yin could use karma to see. Their strength wasn't below Lu Yin's, and at this moment, it wasn't time to expose their karma. Jihe wanted to work together and cultivate in the three universes. Lu Yin definitely wouldn't object, and he even looked forward to taking him away, but not now. He still hadn't figured out the relationship between Wine Question and Azure Lotus Ruler, so it wasn't wise to take Jihe away. Jihe couldn't possibly know about this. Jihe had reminded Wine Question about his disciple and Jianghu and the others' attitudes. Jianghu and the others' attitudes were indeed worth considering. They weren't ordinary people but rather experts who cultivated the path of heartlessness. However, they were very respectful towards Wine Question. Even when they were disrespectful, Wine Question suppressed them and didn't dare to resist. Wine Question was very dignified. Not long after, Lu Yin left Stormwater Gorge and found Elder Chiu. Their destination was Flower City. Flower City was where Sherman had been born. Lu Yin had already read through many of the family histories, so the next thing he needed to do was look through the records of those who had lived for a long time. Someone like Sherman, who had a high status, might know a few things or rumors about him. Many truths couldn't be directly recorded, and he had to search for clues. Now he was asking Elder Chiu about Wine Question's disciple. Disciple? The Stonewall tribe? Elder Chiu was puzzled. Hadn't Lu Yin already taken a look? His attitude towards Lu Yin was very respectful. This was a ruthless person who had beaten Jianghu and the others like a stray dog. He had torn apart the limitless umbrella prison with one hand. Elder Chiu would never forget that scene for the rest of his life, and he believed that the entire Red Shirt civilization wouldn't forget it either. Elder Chiu was looking through the histories of the various families, and at this moment he would be added to those histories. This person had already been recorded in history. Lu Yin asked, "How many disciples does Wine Question have?" Elder Chiu replied respectfully, "No, Bayu counts as half. The rest have all passed away." Lu Yin had asked this question before leaving the Stonewall tribe, and Elder Chiu had given him the same answer. Lu Yin looked at Elder Chiu. How many disciples did he have? Elder Chiu's eyes flashed. I don't know. After all, sect leader Jiuwen has been alive for a long time. It's not something we can pry into. Then tell me what you know. Why are you asking this, Mr. Lu? I'm curious. Elder Chiu hesitated. Actually, sect leader Jiuwen's disciples are all dead. They have no value. Then bring me to their families. Other than the Stonewall tribe, I really don't know about the rest, Elder Chiu replied. Lu Yin looked at Elder Chiu calmly. Elder Chiu met Lu Yin's gaze and bowed deeply. Mr. Lu, please don't make things difficult for me. Make things difficult. If you ask this, you must have heard something. This is a taboo. Please don't make things difficult for me. Lu Yin's tone was cold. I must know what I want to know. Elder Chiu's face turned pale. He suddenly knelt down. Please don't make things difficult for me. Lu Yin looked at Elder Chiu. Are you that afraid? Are you afraid of me or Jiuwen? Elder Chiu did not dare to answer. He lowered his head. He did not expect to be asked this question. This was a taboo in the entire civilization. Even the Eternal Realm cultivators did not dare to talk about it. How did Mr. Lu know? Since this is a taboo, why did you dare to bring me to the Stonewall tribe? Aren't you afraid that I'll ask you the same question? Elder Chiu's voice was dry. No one will touch on this question. This matter is beyond everyone's knowledge. Lu Yin looked at Elder Chiu deeply. Jihe's reminder was right. A taboo? Then Jiuwen must have made this taboo. So many years had passed that no one knew about it. They subconsciously thought that this matter did not exist. Everything could not be related to this matter. When he left the Stonewall tribe, he asked Elder Chiu about Jiuwen's disciples. Elder Chiu's answer was very natural. There was nothing strange about it. Even Lu Yin did not notice it. He asked again just now and it was still very natural. The more natural it was, the more taboo it was. It was so taboo that they had forgotten about it. If not for Lu Yin's continuous questioning, Elder Chiu would not have been like this. When a person hid a secret, they would be nervous when others approached it. However, if they forgot about it, then no one would be able to find out. Just from Elder Chiu's attitude, Lu Yin could tell that the entire civilization was helping Jiuwen forget about this matter. Or rather, they were covering it up. Lu Yin's karma revolved around his fingertips and pierced through Elder Chiu. Elder Chiu was shocked. He did not know what had pierced through him, but he did not dare to move. Lu Yin watched for a while and was disappointed. This matter had nothing to do with Elder Chiu. He had only known about it but had not participated. He was not part of the experience and he could not see through karma. Get up. I was just asking. Elder Chiu sighed. Thank you, sir. He stood up, sweat dripping from his forehead. He was still afraid. Lu Yin walked forward. How far? Soon. I'll lead the way. Elder Chiu came to Flower City again, but this time he brought Lu Yin with him. The last time he had come, he had been chased out by Xiaman. This time he did not believe that Xiaman would have the guts. Flower City's singing was beautiful, Xiaman was beautiful, and the girl in her arms was even more beautiful. However, all of this was ruined. When Xiaman saw Lu Yin standing outside Flower City, she felt an indescribable sense of absurdity. What was he doing here? After chasing away the singers, Xiaman hurried out of Flower City to welcome him. The people of Flower City also stood respectfully in place, not daring to move. Xiaman greets Mr. Lu. Lu Yin looked at the girl in front of him. Sorry to disturb you. That you're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.